Chapter 1151. The Boundary Steel Pass was the second impregnable pass of the Sixth Waterway. Its scale was magnificent, second only to the main pass, the Black Tortoise Pass. It was famous because there was an ancient tablet written by a quasi-saint guarding this pass. Almost more than 40% of the Realm River Alliance's forces were gathered here. Emperor Tsong and the only 9 Tribulations immortal emperor in the Alliance, Old Demon White, were also there. At this moment, Emperor Tsong and more than 10,000 old monsters were holding a small meeting inside the Boundary Steel Pass. All the 10,000 old monsters had gloomy expressions. Even Old Devil White, who had just defeated the foreign races in the Boundary River, had an ugly expression on his face. The content of the meeting was to discuss how to deal with the 4 half-saints of the Sixth Path. A few days ago, an Eastern Sky Quasi-Emperor had risked his life to go to Black Tortoise Mountain Pass to gather information on the 4th Semisage. As a result, he had been discovered by that Semisage, and had been killed on the spot in Black Tortoise Mountain Pass. His flesh and blood had been divided up and eaten by the strange races. Fortunately, that Eastern Sky Quasi-Emperor's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. He just so happened to have a type of divine ability. Once he died, he could transmit the fragments of the battle back to the array formation he had arranged before his death. Therefore, Emperor Tsong and the others saw the scene of Taoist Xianwei killing the Eastern Sky Quasi-Emperor. Whether it was Emperor Tsong or Old Devil Bai, neither of them were cultivators who had lived since the ancient times. Just by looking at some of the battle footage, it was impossible for them to determine Taoist Xuanwei's identity and origin. They could only roughly tell that this person had the strength of a semisage or above. But Great Emperor Chong He recognized Taoist Xianwei. The waterways that Emperor Chong He had been on had already been conquered, so he was transferred to the 6th route. Having an old man at home is like having a treasure. No matter what, Great Emperor Chonghe was also an old man of the same generation as Ancient Chaos Heavenly Emperor. Even if he deliberately hid his strength and didn't reveal much of it to the outside world, he was still able to gain the respect of the majority of Eastern Sky's old monsters. Emperor Chonghe's face turned pale when he saw that this half-saint was Taoist Xianwei, the general of the Demon Conferral Summit. When the crowd asked for the reason, Great Emperor Chonghe told them about Taoist Xuanwei's background. When they found out that Taoist Xianwei had even poisoned a quasi-saint to death, how could they remain calm and composed? Was there anyone in the Boundary Steel who could rival Taoist Xianwei? What should we do? Even if the enemy has an ordinary half-saint, it would still be difficult for us to deal with them. I didn't expect that the 4th half-saint is actually not an ordinary person, but the renowned Taoist Xianwei. Although I'm conceited, I know that I'm not a match for that Taoist Xianwei. Legend has it that Taoist Xuanwei's strongest ability is the art of poison. Everyone might not know this, but this old man's weakness is also the art of poison. If the enemy is an ordinary poison cultivator, this old man can still rely on his strength to crush and defeat him. However, if it's a poison cultivator of the mysterious tail level, Old Devil Bai let out a long sigh. If they were to fight against the foreign races in the future, as the strongest expert in the Boundary Steel Pass, he would definitely have to fight against Taoist Xianwei. He wasn't even a match for Taoist Xianwei in a one-on-one fight. It would be extremely difficult for the others to deal with the remaining 3 half-saints of the alien race. Fellow Taoist 8th Scenery and fellow Taoist Raho have received the news and are rushing over from the 3rd route. Fellow Taoist 8th Scenery is a veteran 8th Tribulation immortal emperor. Fellow Taoist Rahu has just become a sovereign recently. Although his realm has just stabilized, according to fellow Taoist 8th Scenery, his combat strength has already surpassed the majority of 8th Tribulation immortal emperors. He's even stronger than Sun Luo, who opened the incipient Saint Ring back then. If these 2 fellow Taoists come to help, I'm sure we'll be able to relax a lot, Emperor Jin Heng of the Taurus Palace said. It's indeed a good thing to have these 2 coming to help. Unfortunately, it's still not enough. Someone sighed. Fellow Taoist Void and fellow Taoist Shinkong have also received the news and are rushing over here. Emperor Shinsu and Emperor Shinsu are experts in joint attacks. Even if they can't match a half-saint, They can still restrain one of them for a short period of time and share some of the pressure for fellow Taoist White, said the veteran immortal Emperor Yellow Turban of the Eastern Sky. That's all in the past. The current Emperor Shinsu has suffered severe injuries and his cultivation base has fallen. He only has a 7th Tribulation Realm cultivation base now. The destructive power of his joint attack with Emperor Void has also been greatly reduced. Now, it's a little difficult for the two of them to stop a half-saint. However, if they can come, it will indeed greatly improve the overall strength of our boundary steel. Another person shook his head and said, as expected, fellow Taoist Ning is the only one we can rely on. Someone sighed with emotion. Currently, Ning Fan's strength was publicly recognized as the strongest person in the Realm River Alliance. However, one should know that the Battle of the Realm River had just begun less than 10 years ago. What was Ning Fan's situation like 10 years ago? At that time, the Eastern Sky was not facing a crisis. At that time, the cultivators of the Eastern Sky were not united yet. At that time, Ning Fan was still being chased by the Dark Race. Among the old monsters present, there were many who had tried to curry favor with the Dark Race and secretly targeted Ning Fan. Even those who remained neutral usually did not have a good impression of Ning Fan. However, 10 years later, when the crisis of the Eastern Sky arrived, Ning Fan actually became everyone's hope. He became the strongest barrier of the Realm River Alliance. With his outstanding achievements, countless cultivators in the Alliance admired and worshipped him. His reputation was extremely high and it was even higher than Emperor Tsong, who was the leader of the Alliance. How could they not sigh with emotion? When will fellow Taoist Ning come? If he comes, a mere Taoist Xian Wei is nothing. I just received another news from the 9th Path. This Taoist Xian Wei seems to have appeared in the battlefield of the 9th Path and was even defeated by fellow Taoist Ning. At that time, fellow Taoist Ning's Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul directly crushed Taoist Xian Wei. What? Fellow Taoist Ning's Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul actually crushed Taoist Xian Wei? That's impossible, right? That Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul seems to only have a cultivation base of around the half-saint realm. Even though it's considered powerful, it's still not enough to crush a half-saint realm expert of the ancient era. I heard that the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul was riding an ancestral lightning sparrow. The lightning power between the two of them fused together. Therefore, the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul could display its strength several times. It's really unheard of to fight for a sparrow and improve one's strength. This old man has heard of it. In the ancient era, many cultivators brought their mounts to battle. It seems to be a very common thing. To us cultivators of the cultivation-ending era, riding a mount may only be a means of transportation. However, some ancient factions seem to know some secret techniques that can be used with a mount to increase one's strength. This principle is similar to how a general in the mortal world can borrow the horsepower of a warhorse to greatly increase his strength. The quality of a warhorse can sometimes become the deciding factor in a life and death battle between mortals. That Taoist Xian Wei was defeated by fellow Taoist Ning once in the 9th Path. Now that he's in the 6th Path, it's highly possible that he has already thought of a way to restrain the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul. We must be careful. If the opponent really has some kind of arrangement, it's hard to say whether fellow Taoist Ning can defeat Taoist Xian Wei again this time. Sigh, when will the chaos of the Boundary River be pacified? Every day, I see my close friends and disciples dying one by one, yet I'm powerless to stop it. This old man feels a little sad. Fellow Taoist Lin is also someone who is used to seeing slaughter. It's really surprising that you're so sentimental. Sigh, this old man's state of mind is indeed lacking. However, if there's peace, who would be willing to be mired in the swamp of war? I still prefer the Boundary River that used to be calm and tranquil. When fellow Taoist Ning arrives, he might have a way to completely reclaim the 6th Path. When will fellow Taoist Ning arrive? I heard that he had already set off from the 9th Path 10 days ago. Why hasn't he arrived yet? Why don't you contact fellow Taoist Ning and see where he is now? Maybe he encountered some trouble on the way and was delayed. If there's really trouble, we can also send people to rescue him. Cough cough. Given fellow Taoist Ning's strength, why would he need our help? I'm just doing it out of concern. As soon as Ning Fan was mentioned, the pressure on the group of old monsters of the eastern skies suddenly lessened. The dark cloud that shrouded their hearts slightly dispersed. They deeply believed that as long as Ning Fan comes to their rescue, they would have a way to deal with the foreign race's half-step saints no matter how many of them there are. Emperor Tsong listened to the advice of some old monsters and began to contact Ning Fan. He was also a little worried that Ning Fan might encounter some trouble on the way. After all, he already knew that Ning Fan could travel freely in the Boundary River without the help of a battle boat. Based on his speed, he should have reached the sixth path a few days ago. However, he had yet to arrive even after such a long time. Ding ding ding. It was Emperor Tsong's voice transmitting Jade Talisman. He was trying to get in touch with Ning Fan. Buzz buzz buzz. It was the sound of successfully contacting Ning Fan. However, due to the interference of the magnetic force of the Realm River, the effect of the voice transmission was not very ideal. Sometimes, it would be accompanied by a buzzing noise. This was very annoying, but with Grey Deity's cultivation, he had no way to change it. Alliance Master, are you looking for me? Ning Fan's voice resounded from the other end of the Jade Talisman. Ning Fan roughly knew that the Heaven Emperor was looking for him for official business. In private, he would directly address Tsong Di as Dao Brother, but when it came to official matters, he would address Tsong Di as Alliance Leader to show respect. Yes. You've already left the ninth path for 10 days, but you still haven't reached the Boundary Steel. The other fellow Taoists and I are worried that you might have run into some trouble on the way. Upon hearing what he said, Ning Fan's laughter seemed to resound from the other end of the Jade Talisman. It was the laughter of someone who was in a good mood. It wasn't just because he had just experienced a great victory and crushed the Black Tortoise Pass with his own strength. Moreover, because Emperor Tsong and the others cared for him from the bottom of their hearts, he felt warmth. Among the first 10 Eastern Sky cultivators, 9 of them were hostile towards Ning Fan because Ning Fan's reputation was just too bad. Today, however, it was different. Ning Fan and countless old monsters of the Eastern Sky had become comrades and comrades in arms. It was a relationship where they shed their blood together. It was a relationship where men entrusted their lives to each other. They were men who guarded the Eastern Sky together. Ning Fan was not sure about those cultivators of the Eastern Sky who did not participate in the battle. At least, he could no longer find anyone who was hostile towards him among the allied forces of the Realm River Alliance. On the battlefield, they were comrades who entrusted their lives to Ning Fan. If the battle ends and they return to the Eastern Sky, they would not become enemies again. Instead, they would retain their comrades-in-arms relationship. You seem to be in a good mood? You don't seem to have run into any trouble, right? That's good. Knowing that Ning Fan was safe and sound, Tsong Di heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. All the old monsters at the scene were infected by Ning Fan's laughter from the Jade Talisman. The pressure they felt was instantly reduced. It was as if they no longer had to worry about their current predicament as long as they heard Ning Fan's voice. Since you didn't meet with any trouble on the way, hurry up and come to the Boundary Steel Pass. We're still waiting for you to come up with a plan to teach the foreign races a lesson. Emperor Tsong said, This might not work. I can't send my clone to the Boundary Steel Pass right now. I have to stay at the Mystic Martial Pass for now. Before Ning Fan could finish his words, all the old monsters present had already sucked in a cold breath. What did they hear? Ning Fan said that he was currently at the Black Tortoise Gate. What kind of joke was this? Did he not want to live anymore? He actually snuck into the Black Tortoise Pass alone? Sneaked into the territory of the non-human kind? What? Why didn't you tell me earlier that you were hiding in the Black Tortoise Gate? You want to cooperate with us and break through the Black Tortoise Gate in one fell swoop? I don't know how you managed to sneak into the Black Martial Gate. Quickly cut off the communication. Don't let the half-saint of the Black Martial Gate detect you. Once they find out that you are in the Black Tortoise Gate, you'll be in great danger. However, this is also an excellent opportunity for us to coordinate with each other from the inside and outside. Emperor Tsong's powerful imagination had already conjured up a scene in his mind. The reason why Ning Fan had yet to arrive at the Boundary Steel Pass was because he had secretly sneaked into the inner part of the Black Tortoise Gate. To ordinary people, wanting to sneak into the Black Tortoise Gate without being detected by the 4 half-saint experts of the non-human kind was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, to Ning Fan, it was not an impossible task. Ning Fan definitely wanted to cooperate with them and take back the Black Tortoise Gate in one fell swoop. That was why he deliberately sneaked into the Black Tortoise Gate. No wonder he had yet to arrive. It turned out that he was actually planning such a dangerous thing. A moment of carelessness and he would be attacked by all the experts of the Black Tortoise Gate together and die without a burial place. Emperor Tsong thought of this possibility in his mind. In an instant he actually felt a little touched. The eyes of the handsome young man were filled with tears. He was touched that Ning Fan did not hesitate to take the risk in order to protect the Eastern Heaven. This action was too similar to that half-saint emperor who sacrificed himself for the greater good. In the ancient times, there were many people who lamented and sang sorrowful songs. The ancients did not deceive me. They did not deceive me. How intelligent were the other old monsters of the Eastern Heaven? In an instant, they also imagined Ning Fan's various plans of sneaking into the Black Tortoise Gate and attempting to break through the gate by coordinating with each other from the inside and outside. All of a sudden, Ning Fan's position in everyone's hearts became even more majestic. His selfless character and persistence towards the greater good had touched the hearts of the iron-blooded men one after another. In the cold and selfish cultivation world, how many people would dare to sacrifice their bodies and sneak into the enemy's hinterland for the rise and fall of the world? How courageous! How hot-blooded! That was what a man should be like. From the beginning to the end, not a single one of them thought that Ning Fan sneaked into the Black Tortoise Gate to fight against 10,000 enemies and attack the Black Tortoise Gate head-on. What was even more unexpected was that Ning Fan had already flattened the entire Black Tortoise Gate and annihilated all the foreign races in this place. None of the 4 half-saint realm enemies managed to escape. It's not what you think it is. On the other side of the Jade Talisman, Ning Fan felt that Emperor Tsong and the others had misunderstood something. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This is what happened. 3 days ago, I arrived at the 6th water path. Then, I seized the opportunity and broke through the Black Tortoise Gate. Because it's very difficult for me to repair the formation of the Black Tortoise Gate in a short period of time with my strength alone, I was afraid that the enemy would come back and occupy this gate again. Therefore, I temporarily can't leave and I have to guard this place. Silence. It was as silent as death. Be it Emperor Tsong or Old Devil Bai, all of them were dumbfounded. They were shocked by the shocking content that Ning Fan said in a calm tone. Alliance Lord, quickly move the main forces of the Boundary Steel to the Black Tortoise Gate. Only by rebuilding the Black Tortoise Gate and repairing the formation can this gate be considered to have completely returned to the hands of the Eastern Sky cultivators. Ning Fan suggested. Silence. It was still as silent as death. Emperor Tsong was the first to recover from his shock. His expression was extremely interesting. He said to Ning Fan with a very serious tone, "Be more serious. The matter of the Black Tortoise Gate is related to the situation of the 6th water path and the success or failure of the Boundary River. You can't joke around." He felt that Ning Fan was just joking when he said that he would take back the Black Tortoise Gate. The other old monsters of the Eastern Sky also felt that Ning Fan was joking. None of them thought that Ning Fan could crush the enemy's 4 half-saint realm experts, 22 immortal emperors and more than 200 immortal venerables and immortal kings on his own and flatten the Black Tortoise Gate. It was too fantastical. Even a quasi-saint realm expert might not be able to do it. Wasn't there a famous Taoist Xianwei among the 4 half-saint realm experts of the enemy? He had even poisoned a quasi-saint realm expert to death. How powerful was he? Moreover, this person might have already found a way to deal with the Tao Annihilation Lightning Nascent Soul. How could he let Ning Fan break through the gate so easily? I'm very serious. Ning Fan's slightly helpless voice resounded from the other end of the Jade Talisman. He knew that the things he had done would make countless people suffer a great blow. But what can he do about it? I'm strong. It's all my fault. You should know that there are many existences in the foreign races who are much stronger than me. There's also the blood god Gung Wu. If you know that the foreign races have the blood god Gung Wu, I'm afraid you will directly feel despair about the future of the eastern sky. Sure enough, the matter about the blood god Gung Wu should not be talked about recklessly. It would really shake the morale of the army. However, it was also undeniable that this would cause Emperor Tsong and the others to misjudge the strategy of pacifying the Boundary River. Did you really take back the Black Tortoise Gate all by yourself? This question was not asked by Emperor Tsong but by Old Devil White, who had the reputation of the Azure Sky White Jade building. Unlike the others, Old Devil White did not doubt the authenticity of Ning Fan's words at all. His personality was similar to Ning Fan's. If he had sufficient strength, he would also dare to attack the enemy alone and flatten the Black Tortoise Gate. The problem was that he did not have that strength. Previously, when he was besieged by 3 Half-Saint Realm experts, he was actually at a disadvantage. Out of desperation, he took the risk and revealed a flaw. Fortunately, the water buffalo god fell for it. That was how he managed to severely injure the unlucky water buffalo god. The cultivators of the eastern sky admired him even more because of this battle achievement. Because of this, the enemies were also more vigilant against him. Only Old Devil White himself knew that the same battle achievement could not be replicated for the second time. If he is besieged by the water buffalo god and the other 2 Half-Saint Realm experts again, they will definitely not fall for it again. As for him, he would also be defeated by the 3 Half-Saint Realm experts due to his lack of strength. He did not have the strength to fight against the 3 Half-Saint Realm experts. He also did not have the strength to defeat the 4 Half-Saint Realm experts, including Taoist Xianwei. If there are another 22 immortal emperors, 200 immortal venerables and immortal kings besieging him, Old Devil White broke out in cold sweat just thinking about it. Could Ning Fan really do it? If that's the case, Ning Fan was not just a little bit stronger than him. He had always thought that even though Ning Fan was stronger than him, his strength was limited. Yes. Ning Fan had no choice but to answer again. We need to prove it. This is a serious matter. We mustn't play around with it. Old Devil White's voice trembled a little. That's easy. I will send part of the recording of this battle to them. Ning Fan had no choice but to send part of the recording of this battle to them. However, some of the information related to the ghost flower of the netherworld were hidden, making the recording obviously look like it had been edited and was not complete. Even so, it was enough for Emperor Tsong and the others to confirm the authenticity of Ning Fan's words. Through the recording, Ning Fan's invincible figure of crushing the foreign races was deeply imprinted in the eyes of each and every Eastern Sky cultivator. It cannot be faked. Ning Fan really destroyed the Black Tortoise Pass with just his strength alone. After a moment of dead silence, the group of old monsters suddenly began to cheer to vent the ecstasy in their hearts. Just a moment ago, they were still worrying about attacking the Black Tortoise Pass. At the next moment, they directly received the news that the Black Tortoise Pass had already been destroyed. How could they not be happy? Ning Fan was definitely the biggest contributor to the Boundary River meeting. Ning Fan was indeed the hope of the Eastern Sky. He was too reliable. The report of the battle in the Black Tortoise Pass quickly spread across the Boundary Steel Pass. Very soon, the pass fell into a sea of cheers. Emperor Tsong and the others were overjoyed. However, they also knew that the most important thing at this moment was not to celebrate but to mobilize troops to enter the Black Tortoise Pass. They had to repair the formation of the Black Tortoise Pass and link all the formations of the passes into one. In this way, it would be unprecedentedly difficult for the immortal emperors of the foreign races to come out of the water. In this way, the plan to repair the immortal sovereign's seal and completely seal the foreign races could also be carried out. The chaos of the Boundary River would be settled soon. Great joy! Great joy! Of course, there were also some people who were not so happy. Old Devil White seemed to have been petrified. He stood on the same spot as if he had suffered a heavy blow. It was not that he was not happy about this victory. It was just that the blow he received was too deep and too heavy. The former number 1 devil of the Eastern Sky was not only surpassed by the later generations, but also surpassed by a few streets. That kind of feeling was really unpleasant. "Brother White, are you all right?" Emperor Jin Heng saw the abnormality of old Devil White and asked with a sigh. "I'm fine. Let me take a break. Just let me take a break. I'm old. I'm really old. The younger generation will surpass us in time. There is no ship that can accommodate this old man in the torrent of the new era. The new waves of the Yangtze River push the old waves. I really can't not admit that I'm old. This era is no longer the era of me by Yulo, nor is it the Sun Luo era that has passed. It doesn't belong to Emperor Tsong, the Taurus Palace, or the Godly Void Pavilion. This era is called Ning Fan." "It's called Ning Fan?" Old Devil White said with a heavy blow. After the blow, he also felt gratified and relieved. His state of mind had improved. It turned out that his state of mind had always been restrained by the false title of the number 1 devil of the eastern sky. When Ning Fan completely shattered this false title, Old Devil White finally felt how broad the path of cultivation was in front of him and how limited his vision was all along. His path to the quasi-saint realm seemed to be a little clearer now. Chapter 1152. Emperor Tsong led his army to the Black Tortoise Pass and rebuilt it. The formations on the surface of the entire eastern boundary river were finally connected as one. Even on days when the sun was not shining brightly, the surface of the water was still sparkling. That light was not the reflection of sunlight but the hidden formation light. Under the suppression of such formation light, it would be unprecedentedly difficult for the experts of the foreign races above the immortal emperor realm to get out of the water in the future. However, in Ning Fan's opinion, that great divine priest of the foreign races most likely still had a way to deal with this situation. The sparkling light on the surface of the water was weakening day by day at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was the sign that the power of the immortal sovereign's seal was gradually dissipating. It was time to repair the immortal sovereign's seal. However, Emperor Tsong and the others could not move immediately. The formations on the surface of the eastern boundary river had just been connected as one. There were still many arrangements to be made on the surface of the water to increase the success rate of repairing the immortal sovereign's seal. These arrangements could be completed by Emperor Tsong and the others. Naturally, there was no need for a great deity like Ning Fan to do it. Experts would always receive preferential treatment no matter where they go. These arrangements would take a lot of time. Ning Fan could only wait. Of course, he was not just waiting idly. This period of time was just right for him to absorb the many benefits he had obtained from the previous battles. Killing on the battlefield was the fastest way to improve one's strength. The larger the scale of the battle, the greater the benefits a cultivator could obtain. They could obtain cultivation resources that were tens of times more than what they would obtain during normal cultivation. However, in the crossroads between life and death, one's cultivation realm would be solidified and their comprehension would be increased. Ning Fan was currently in such a situation. After coming to the boundary river for tens of years, he had obtained countless cultivation resources and his strength had entered a period of rapid improvement. Sometimes, it was not necessarily a good thing for one's strength to rise too quickly. It would cause one's foundation to be unstable and one's cultivation realm to be superficial. Fortunately, Ning Fan had experienced a lot of battles during this period of time. His superficial cultivation realm had long been solidified through countless bloody battles. His chi was now as vast as the mountains and seas. When he sat in meditation with his legs crossed, a massive aura force that could engulf the sun and moon gradually appeared between each breath. Engulfing the sun and moon was the breathing aura force that only a true quasi-saint realm expert could possess. Ning Fan was just an immortal king realm cultivator, but he was actually able to do it. Countless cultivators of the Alliance were impressed by him, and he gained more admirers. The myriad world's red dot and the poison sac of the green wave fire poison. Ning Fan had spent several months devouring and refining these two items. The power of his poison yin yang had nearly doubled, allowing him to advance further on the path of minor completion of the sovereign realm. However, there was still a long way to go before he could truly attain the middle level of the sovereign realm. He would need to devour at least another 6 to 7 types of the most poisonous items in the world before he could attain the middle level of the sovereign realm. The benefits of increasing the power of yin-yang poison were very obvious. The power of Ningfan's poison attacks had become stronger and his poison resistance had also become higher. If he were to fight Taoist Xianwei again right now, he would at most suffer minor injuries even if he forgoes his defense and forcefully withstands Taoist Xianwei's poison attacks. However, if he puts up his defense, Taoist Xianwei's poison attacks would not be able to hurt him at all. Ningfan did not know how strong his current poison resistance was. Based on his estimation, it should at least be a lot stronger than Taoist Xianwei's myriad poison primordial body. The immemorial devil herbs that he obtained from Taoist Xianwei included many body refinement pills. All of them made Ningfan's physical body slightly stronger. After doing all these, Ningfan began to use the power of the Divine Pearl to continue cultivating the Langya Heavenly Hook Jade. The tear of the mermaid when Aphrodite was in love could increase his absorption speed of water elemental power by hundreds of times. However, a drop of tear could only be used for a day. The Divine Pearl was different. According to Ningfan's estimation, it could be used for at least a few months, allowing him to absorb water elemental power 1,000 times faster than normal. Of course, this was just Ningfan's initial estimation. He would only know the exact effect after using it. Ningfan began to cultivate the 4th volume of the Heavenly Hook Jade. The limit of the 3rd volume was to cultivate the Heavenly Hook Jade to 1,000 pieces. The 4th volume could allow him to cultivate 10,000 pieces. The Heavenly Hook Sacred Scroll was the ultimate art of the ancestor of the Heavenly Hook Fish clan, Ancestor Langya. It was said that there were 12 complete volumes of the Heavenly Hook Sacred Scroll. However, Ningfan only obtained the first 6 volumes of this cultivation method from the Heavenly Hook Fish clan. The remaining volumes must have been lost in the river of time. After 8 months, Ningfan finally used up all the power of the Divine Pearl. During these 8 months, the number of Heavenly Hook Jade he had increased from 1,000 pieces to 2,500 pieces. Ningfan had to admit that the Heavenly Hook Jade was getting harder to cultivate in the later stages. Ningfan was already very satisfied with his current progress. The explosive power of the ocean-defying sword had greatly improved. Without the help of the Divine Pearl, Ningfan would need at least 100 to 200 years to cultivate another 1,500 pieces of Heavenly Hook Jade. If he wants to completely cultivate the remaining contents of the 4th volume, he would need at least 1,000 years. The 5th volume could cultivate 100,000 pieces of Heavenly Hook Jade. The 6th volume could allow him to cultivate 1,000,000 pieces of Heavenly Hook Jade. According to the introduction of the Heavenly Hook Sacred Scroll, among the cultivation methods that Ningfan had yet to obtain, the 7th volume could allow him to cultivate 10 million pieces of Heavenly Hook Jade. The 8th volume would exceed 100 million, the 9th volume would exceed 1 billion, the 10th volume would exceed 10 billion, the 11th volume would exceed 10 billion and the 12th volume would require 100 billion. Even if Ningfan could maintain the cultivation speed of the 4th volume, he would need at least 10,000 years to cultivate the 5th volume under normal conditions. The 6th volume would require more than 100,000 years, the 7th volume would require 1,000,000 years, the 8th volume would require 10 million years, the 9th volume would require 100 million years, the 10th volume would require 1,000,000,000 years, the 11th volume would require 10 billion years and the 12th volume would require 100 billion years. Ningfan was rather doubtful whether Ancestor Langya, who created the Heavenly Hook Sacred Scroll, had really cultivated this ability to the highest level. One should know that it had only been 1,000,000,000 years since the era of immortal sovereign Zido. Perhaps that Ancestor Langya has a Water Dao supreme treasure that can greatly speed up the cultivation of the Heavenly Hook Jade. Ningfan guessed inwardly. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed. On this day, in the Black Tortoise Pass, a few figures suddenly appeared. With a secret technique, they silently dived to the bottom of the Realm River. These people were none other than Ningfan and his group who were trying to enter the bottom of the 6th path to repair the immortal sovereign realm seal. Ningfan, Old Devil Bai, Emperor Tsang, Emperor Su Kong, Emperor Shin Kong, 8 Scenery Emperors, Emperor Jin Heng and Luo Ho. This time, only these 8 people would be participating in the operation. The weakest among them was close to the 8th tribulation immortal emperor realm. Those whose strength was lower than this standard would not be of much help to repairing the seal even if they participate in the operation. Instead, they might expose their whereabouts due to the large number of participants and be attacked by the foreign races. Since they were going to the hinterland of the foreign races, Ning Fan had to inform Emperor Tsang and the others about the true strength of the foreign races, a strength that even the Taurus Palace did not know about. That was the existence of the blood god Dark Crow. When Emperor Tsang and the others found out that there was actually a blood god Dark Crow at the bottom of the water of the foreign races, all of them sucked in a cold breath. They became even more cautious about the operation this time. This was the result that Ning Fan wanted. He did not want Emperor Tsang and the others to misjudge the strength of the foreign races and make a mistake in their plan. According to the ancient records of my Taurus Palace, there are a total of 12 immortal sovereign realm seals at the bottom of the world river. They are located in the 12 water paths. However, 11 of them are just illusions. Only the seal on the 6th path is real. Therefore, if we want to repair the immortal sovereign realm seals that are getting weaker day by day, the first thing we have to do is to repair the real seal on the 6th path. Everyone, please take a look at this map of mine. The real seal on the 6th path has a total of 3 sealed towers. We don't need to visit all of the sealed towers. We just need to go to any one of them and we will be able to repair the immortal sovereign realm seals. Among the 3 sealed towers, one of them is located in the divine palace of the foreign races. It is the place where the great divine priest of the foreign races personally guards. It is also the place where the foreign races gather their troops. The sealed tower here is naturally not something that we can covet. As for the 2nd sealed tower, it is located in the territory of the Divine Lotus clan. According to the records of my Taurus Palace, the Divine Lotus clan is a super clan in the East World River. There are more than 3 quasi-saints guarding the sealed tower in the clan all year round. 3 quasi-saints aren't people we can fight against. That's why this tower isn't our target. Our target is the last sealed tower. The 3rd sealed tower is located in the territory of the Heavenly Shadow clan. The Heavenly Shadow clan used to be a super clan in the East Border River. However, something happened to this clan in antiquity times. The entire clan was destroyed. Even the 3 sage-to-be who guarded the sealed tower and the sealed tower itself were destroyed. Now, only a few immortal sovereigns of the Heavenly Shadow clan are active in the various water paths. They are no longer as prosperous as they used to be. However, the original territory of the Heavenly Shadow clan is now a wasteland that no one cares about. It is said that there is a huge amount of karma left in this place. Therefore, ordinary cultivators don't dare to stay here for a long time. Since the sealed tower has been destroyed, there is no need to send people to guard it. Therefore, the great divine priests of the foreign clans don't have many soldiers stationed here. Occasionally, there will be a few immortal sovereigns of the foreign clans who come here to cultivate their karma. Although the 3rd sealed tower has been destroyed, the Taurus Palace has the pagoda repair technique that the immortal sovereign gave us. It can be repaired. The sealed tower is the medium that connects the seals of the East World River. We need the power of the sealed tower to repair the seals of the immortal sovereign in the East World River. Now, I will explain the details of the plan. First, we need to sneak into the remains of the Heavenly Shadow clan and eliminate the few immortal sovereigns who are cultivating there. We don't want them to disturb us. Second, we need to repair the sealed tower. Third, which is also the most dangerous step, we need to repair the immortal sovereign's seals after we repair the sealed tower. This is extremely dangerous. As long as the sealed tower reappears in the East World River, the foreign clans will definitely sense it and send an army to eliminate us. This place is under the water of the foreign clans. They have as many immortal sovereigns, half-saints and half-saints as they want. Killing us will be as easy as flipping their palms. It's hard to say whether we can withstand the attacks of the foreign clans and repair the immortal sovereign seals. Even if we succeed, we will certainly be besieged by the half-saints of the foreign clans. It's also hard to say how many of us can return from the East World River alive. Then, this old man will ask you one last time. Have you really decided to take the risk of dying in this operation? It's still not too late to back out now. The water of the East World River was cold. The moment Ning Fan jumped into the river, he recalled the last question of the Golden Heng Emperor before the operation. It's still not too late to back out now. However, even though Emperor Tsang and the others struggled silently, none of them chose to back out in the end. All of them were prepared to die before they joined this operation. It did not mean that these people's consciousness was really high or that they really cared about the rise and fall of the world and the welfare of the common people. Most people were selfish. Those who selflessly returned the favor to the world were the minority after all. However, no matter how selfish or cold-blooded a person was, he or she would more or less have some restraints and reluctance in this world. After all, the truly cold-blooded and heartless devils were only the minority in the cultivation world. Besides, it was impossible for such people to participate in the meeting of the East World River. If they do not participate in the operation to repair the immortal sovereign seals, they would certainly be safe for the time being. However, it was also possible that the repair of the immortal sovereign seals would fail due to the lack of their own strength. In that case, the power of the seals would eventually be exhausted one day. In that case, the iron hooves of the foreign clans would once again invade the eastern sky in the near future. Moreover, the scale of the invasion this time would certainly be much larger than the last time. After all, during the previous invasion of the foreign clans, the remaining power of the immortal sovereign's seals still remained, which limited the scale of the invading army. The enemies did not even have any half-saints. However, it was different this time. There were too many experts of the foreign clans coming out of the water. How many immortal sovereigns had Ning Fan killed on the surface of the water before the full-scale war began? There should be more than dozens of them. How many half-saints were there? The scale of the chaos in the East World River this time was just too huge. This was the evidence that the power of the immortal sovereign seals was almost exhausted. If they let the power of the immortal sovereign seals continue to be exhausted, the half-saints of the foreign clans would also come out of the water. Even that blood god Jiao Wu that Ning Fan mentioned might come out of the water and invade the eastern sky. No one was born to be selfless. At least, Ning Fan was not. Even if he was putting himself in danger now, he was not doing it for the sake of the world. Instead, he was doing it for those few people. World Technique, Space Isolation. Emperor Jin Heng activated a secret technique which was said to be obtained from the Beast Clan of the Northern Heaven Realm. As soon as this technique was activated, an invisible spatial barrier appeared around Ning Fan and his group, concealing their traces. They were obviously not hiding themselves. However, the low-grade foreign clans that were patrolling in the surroundings could not see them at all, even though they were very close to them. Occasionally, a big fish would pass by and hit them, but it would magically pass through the space barrier from one end to the other without hitting them. It was Ning Fan's first time seeing such a miraculous spatial secret technique. He could not help but think highly of Emperor Jin Heng's strength. With the help of Emperor Jin Heng, Ning Fan and his group did not need to hide themselves anymore. They quietly sneaked into the territory of the Heavenly Shadow Clan. As far as their eyes could see, there were countless collapsed sea peaks, decayed coral rocks, and a rocky ground that was riddled with holes. This was the ruins of the Heavenly Shadow Clan. Due to the mysterious destruction of the clan in the past, this place was still covered with a layer of strange red mist that could not be extinguished by water and fire. Having mist underwater was supposed to be a marvelous sight. Besides, this red mist was extremely beautiful. It covered the ruins like a fairyland. However, Ning Fan and his group did not have the mood to appreciate the beautiful red mist. It was because this red mist was nothing else but karma that was so massive that it had materialized. To ordinary cultivators, it was an extremely ominous thing that they should not touch. Every evil deed in this world would produce karma. Among them, the karma generated by killing people was the most. However, karma would dissipate. It was extremely rare to see a place like the ruins of the Heavenly Shadow Clan where people had died countless years ago but still retained a massive amount of karma. The karma in this place gave Ning Fan an ominous feeling. His body instinctively did not want to enter this place. However, he knew that he had no choice but to go there. Even if it was a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, he still had to enter it. The magnetic force at the bottom of the world river is too strong. Ordinary spirit sense can't spread too far, especially in a place like this where karma is everywhere. You can't use your spirit sense recklessly. I heard that fellow Taoist Ning has an ancient treasure-searching compass. Can you use it to check if there are any immortal emperors of the enemy forces in this place? Emperor Jin Heng asked. Ning Fan nodded and activated the treasure-searching compass. He set the compass to search for the immortal emperors of the enemy forces. Not long after, 3 light spots appeared on the compass. 3 people, huh? Sure enough, there are immortal emperors of the foreign races cultivating their karma here. These people will disturb our actions and expose our whereabouts. We must eliminate them secretly. However, we can't kill them directly. When an immortal emperor dies, his life plate will certainly shatter. This will attract the attention of the foreign races. Fellow Taoist Void, when the time comes, please use your great Kiliakosm treasure to pull these immortal emperors of the foreign races into your great Kiliakosm. Then we will deal with them, Emperor Jin Heng said. Great Kiliakosm treasure? Everyone's eyes were filled with surprise. They looked at the Void Emperor. Obviously, they did not know that he actually had such a supreme treasure. Even the junior brother of the Void Emperor, Shen Space Emperor, did not know that his senior brother had such a treasure. However, Emperor Jin Heng actually knew about it. From this, it could be seen that this person's ability to gather information was extremely strange. He was almost omniscient. The Void Emperor frowned. If it was in the past, he would most likely kill the person who revealed his trump card to keep it a secret. However, now was the time when they were facing a common enemy. He knew what was important and what was not. He nodded and agreed to use the great Kiliakosm treasure. However, he smiled bitterly. Everyone, please don't overestimate my great Kiliakosm treasure. The world it contains is just a severely damaged great Kiliakosm. Chapter 1153. The illusory world that Ning Fan was in was just a complete great thousand worlds. After learning that the world of the Void Emperor's great Kiliakosm was not in perfect condition but a damaged one, everyone's expression relaxed. However, they were still somewhat surprised. The weight of time and space contained in a complete great Kiliakosm could directly crush an ancient great cultivator to death. Even if it was just a damaged great Kiliakosm, it was enough to imprison some immortal emperors who were not considered strong. It was very suitable to imprison the immortal emperors of the alien race who were cultivating in this place. Brother Bai, you can use the clear heaven white jade building to cover our heads. This treasure has a miraculous effect in restraining karma. Emperor Jin Heng said. Old Devil Bai nodded. He raised the small white jade building in his hand and released a cloud of light to cover everyone. As soon as the building's ability was activated, the surrounding karma was immediately suppressed. Seeing that, Emperor Jin Heng gave them a few more instructions. Then he led the team into the depths of the ruins. Emperor Jin Heng's cultivation base was not the highest among them. However, as the Taurus Palace was located in an ancient town and guarded the Boundary River, he knew many secrets about the Boundary River the best. Thus, he was the one who gave the orders for this trip. According to Ning Fan's treasure-searching compass, there was an immortal emperor of the alien race in each of the northwestern, northeastern, and southeastern corners of the ruins. They were in seclusion there. Because the spatial barrier of the Realm Beast clan was extremely good at concealing itself, everyone hid within the barrier and quietly approached one of the immortal emperors of the alien race. Surprisingly, no one noticed them at all. It was a 6th tribulation immortal emperor of the dragon crab race. His huge body was lying on top of a collapsed building, carefully absorbing the karma of this place. The dragon crab race had an extremely high resistance to karma. That was why he dared to absorb the karma that ordinary cultivators would avoid like snakes and scorpions. Of course, he did not dare to absorb too much each time. At this moment, this immortal emperor of the dragon crab race was carefully pulling the surrounding karma into an extremely thin red line and chewing it into his stomach. All of a sudden, a faint spatial fluctuation appeared around them. The fluctuation was extremely weak, so weak that only the nearby dragon crab race immortal emperors could sense it. Those who were too far away could not sense it. The moment this spatial fluctuation appeared, the dragon crab race immortal emperor felt the world spin. In the next moment, he was forcefully pulled into the void emperor's realm treasure. This was a dilapidated world that was suffused with gray aura, and it had been abandoned for countless years. Even then, it still caused the expression of the dragon crab race's immortal emperor to change violently, and he spoke with shock and fury. "Which clan are you from, fellow Taoist? How dare you imprison me with the legendary Great Kiliakazam realm treasure? My name is Yuan Xie, and I am a subordinate of the divine priest. Is there any misunderstanding here?" He spoke in the language of the outsiders. Of course, no one on the scene could understand it. Ning Fan was the only one who understood the language of the foreign races. Misunderstanding? Ha, there's no misunderstanding. You're the one I'm trying to capture. Stay here. As soon as he said that, the figures of Ning Fan and his group quietly appeared in this desolate world. This White Robe Yama. And he actually brought so many Eastern Heaven immortal emperors. My life is over. The face of the dragon crab race's immortal emperor instantly turned pale with fright. Just Ning Fan alone was enough to make him realize that he was doomed. Besides, there were actually so many Eastern Heaven immortal emperors following behind Ning Fan. How could he possibly survive today? He could not escape even if he wanted to. After being imprisoned in this world, he would not be able to find a spatial crack to escape from this place without a few days of time. Then, here came the question. Would Ning Fan and his group give him a few days to slowly find the exit and escape? In just one exchange, the dragon crab race's immortal emperor was subdued by Ning Fan and his group. After knocking him unconscious, he was temporarily sealed in this world. They did not kill him. If they did, the foreign races would immediately notice that something had changed in this place. There are two more. The group exited the world and hid under the spatial barrier again. They approached the place where another immortal emperor of the foreign races was in seclusion and captured him in the same way. Not long after that, the last immortal emperor of the foreign races who was in seclusion was also captured. We can begin to repair the sealed tower now. But before that, we need to set up some concealment formations on this ruin. If the experts of the foreign races who are passing by sense the fluctuations here, it will not be good. There is a concealment formation in my Taurus Palace called the Four Corners Formation. It requires 4 fellow Taoists to occupy a corner each and control it at the same time. They cannot leave their positions without permission. Once this formation is activated, it can deceive even a first-level quasi-saint. If fellow Taoist Ning's severing fate sword is guarding the eye of the formation, it can even deceive a second-level quasi-saint. Fellow Taoist Ning, can you lend me your sword? Emperor Jin Heng asked. Of course. Ning Fan nodded and summoned the severing fate sword, temporarily lending it to Emperor Jin Heng. After observing the ruins for a long time, Emperor Jin Heng roughly figured out the general layout of this place. He chose the location of the main formation eye and inserted the severing fate sword into it. Then he asked Su Kong, Shen Kong, Ba Jing and Luo Ho to each guard a corner of the ruin. With the combined strength of the 4 of them, they activated the formation marks of the Four Corners Formation. All of a sudden, the heavenly secrets of the entire ruin were cut off. Not a single trace of magic power could leak out from it. As a result, even if Ning Fan's group were to create a huge disturbance inside, it would not be easy for others to detect them. The Four Corners Formation cannot be separated from people. Fellow Taoist Su Kong and the others must guard the formation. They can't participate in the repair of the sealed tower. Therefore, only the 4 of us are the ones who are actually repairing the tower. Fellow Taoist Ning, please use the treasure-searching compass to locate the exact location of the sealed tower. The sealed tower has its own concealment function. Even if the sealed tower has been damaged for many years, no one will be able to detect its location easily. Even with the help of the treasure-searching compass, Ning Fan still spent a long time to barely find the approximate location of the sealed tower. Emperor Jin Heng led Ning Fan, by Yulo and Emperor Song to the approximate location of the sealed tower. Then, they sat down cross-legged on the ground and began to chant scriptures. The scripture was called the Great Purple Battle Devil Sealing Scripture. It could be used to communicate with the sealed tower and summon it out of its concealed state. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. On the 3rd day, a purple light suddenly shone brightly above a certain ruin. A demon tower with a bull horn that was made from purple jade appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This was one of the 3 sealed towers in the 6th path. It was severely damaged. The cracks on the tower's body were repaired, but the corrosion was severe. There were also countless seaweed and shells living on it. Not a single bit of sealing power was left in the tower. This was an abandoned tower. Countless years ago, it was destroyed together with the Heaven Shadow clan. The surface of the tower was densely packed with damaged runes. Those runes were written in at least hundreds of languages. All of them were the languages of the ancient cultivators. Even with Ning Fan's experience, he could only recognize a few of them. Ancient divine language, ancient demon language, ancient devil language, ancient barbaric language. These words were repeated over and over again. All of them contained the same content. Purple star on the left, star duel on the right. Open your eyes, it is a dream. Close your eyes, it is emptiness. This was not the first time Ning Fan had seen this incantation engraved on the sealed tower. This incantation was engraved on the 9 heavenly desolation stone gates that were connected to the true world. In the past, Ning Fan had also heard this incantation from Taoist Mu Song on the Wood Island. Immortal Sovereign Zido seemed to like carving this incantation everywhere. Legend has it that this incantation contained a divine ability that the immortal sovereign had left behind. Unfortunately, even though Ning Fan had studied this incantation for many years, he still could not understand the key point of this incantation. He no longer looked at the incantation. Instead, he followed Emperor Jin Heng and began to repair the sealed tower. Repairing the tower was just the first step in repairing the immortal sovereign seal. The immortal materials used to repair the tower were all provided by Emperor Jin Heng. They were taken from the storehouse of the Taurus Palace. Many of them were passed down from ancient times. Under the leadership of Emperor Jin Heng, the work of repairing the tower went smoothly. 10 days later, the sealed tower was fully repaired. A brand new tower with ox horns appeared before everyone's eyes. This tower emitted a strong will. Except for Ning Fan, who had the yin-yang battle power which gave him a high resistance against willpower, the rest of them were pressured by that will to the point that they could not breathe. This is the immortal sovereign's will. I didn't expect that after so many years, this tower actually still retains such a level of immortal sovereign's will. If this tower is in its peak condition, I'm afraid we won't even be able to get within 10,000 zhang of this tower. Emperor Song and the others sighed with emotion. The sealed tower had also been repaired. The next step was the most crucial one. They needed to send someone into the tower and use the power of the sealed tower to add the repair materials to the immortal sovereign's seal in the entire world river. Only one person could enter the sealed tower at a time. There was no exception. Therefore, they did not need everyone to enter the tower. As long as they can complete this task, no matter how powerful the foreign races were, they would not be able to cause trouble on a large scale again. However, the person who is sent into the tower would have to bear a huge risk. If they are not careful, their reincarnation cycle would be directly destroyed by the sealing power of the tower. The person who died in this way would be forgotten by all the living beings in the reincarnation cycle. Forgotten? This is really the style of Immortal Sovereign Zido. Speaking of which, Immortal Sovereign Zido's reincarnation power originally contained the power to erase memories. Then, among the 4 of them, who should be sent to take the risk to repair the sealed tower? I'll go. I know the most about repairing seals. Emperor Jin Heng's expression showed that he was struggling. In the end, he sighed and said, I am the leader of the alliance. Since this matter is dangerous, I naturally should be the one to do it. Emperor Tsong smiled bitterly and shook his head. My cultivation base is the highest. Of course, I should be the one to go. If you all repair the tower, the failure rate is too high. Old Devil Bai said awkwardly. These three people were actually fighting to enter the sealed tower, as if they were not afraid of the dangers of the sealed tower at all. Of course, they were not really fearless. It was just that there were things that real men should do and things that they should not do. However, there were some beliefs that must be carried out. Even though there were millions of people, they still had to go. In the beginning, every young man's heart was filled with hot-bloodedness. However, that hot-bloodedness was eventually extinguished by the passage of time. Emperor Song and the others were no longer hot-blooded and impulsive young men. At this moment, they were actually fighting to take the risk. It made Ning Fan's heart tremble. All of a sudden, he recalled all kinds of hot-blooded and impulsive scenes when he was young. Hot-blooded people who took risks were stupid. Only those who were wise enough to protect themselves were wise. The former could easily die in the long river of cultivation without causing much of a splash. The latter, on the other hand, could usually survive until the end. Compared to those shrewd and sophisticated faces, Ning Fan felt that Emperor Song and the others who were fighting to take the risk were more adorable. "I think it's better for me to go." Ning Fan finally spoke. He was not as noble as Emperor Song and the others. His motive was very simple. He wanted to cultivate the immortal sovereign's seal so that he would have a higher success rate compared to the others. Among the immortal emperors present, the one who understood immortal sovereign Zido's power the most was Ning Fan, who used to be his disciple. He was familiar with immortal sovereign Zido's will pressure. He was familiar with immortal sovereign Zido's reincarnation wind mist. Emperor Song and the others might face a life-or-death situation when they try to repair the seal. As for him, he was not facing such a huge risk. Even if he could not succeed in repairing the seal, he was confident that he could protect himself. However, the others did not know that Ning Fan had the confidence to protect himself. When Emperor Song and the others saw that Ning Fan was actually fighting for his life like them, all of them were moved. They were filled with emotions and had a higher opinion of Ning Fan's character. The four of them competed for a while. In the end, Ning Fan won the chance to enter the sealed tower. This made Emperor Song and the others feel even more ashamed. Ning Fan contributed the most in recovering the pass on the surface of the water. However, he actually took the biggest risk in repairing the immortal sovereign's seal underwater. They really felt a little apologetic. Unfortunately, the moment Ning Fan stepped into the demon tower, no one else could enter it unless Ning Fan came out. As a result, it was too late for Emperor Song and the others to enter the tower to exchange for Ning Fan. The inside of the tower was filled with the suffocating pressure of the immortal sovereign's will. At the top of the tower, countless skeletons were displayed. They were the victims who had tried to enter this place to repair or destroy the immortal sovereign's seal for various purposes. Repairing the immortal sovereign's seal was really very dangerous. These skeletons were the proof. Among them were the skeletons of cultivators, beasts of different races, immortal emperors and quasi-saints. There were at least 1,000 immortal emperors and dozens of quasi-saints who died at the top of the tower. Those who died here would lose their names and be erased from all historical records. No one knew who these people were. Even their relatives and disciples had long forgotten about their existence. If they died here, no one would remember them. If they died here, everything related to these people would be erased by the cycle of reincarnation. Therefore, after these people died, even their magic treasures and storage pouches could not be preserved. Logically speaking, Ning Fan would not be able to deduce the origins of these people from the ancient books, legends and traces left behind at the scene. However, he was a cultivator who could communicate with all living things. He could directly talk to these skeletons and ask them about their identities. Ning Fan asked, "Who are you?" The first skeleton answered, "Immortal cultivator Zido, immortal slackening sect, immortal Huan from the ancient times." Shocking. The first skeleton that Ning Fan casually asked was actually an ancient great cultivator. "Who are you?" The second skeleton answered, "Immortal cultivator Zido, blazing origin sect, Lu Yunzhou, the fourth disciple of great Saint Lu Yuan." Someone from the blazing origin sect actually died here. What a coincidence. A disciple of the blazing origin sect and a disciple of great Saint Lu Yuan. Ning Fan remembered that great Saint Lu Yuan seemed to be the master of great Emperor Ancient Chaos. In other words, the owner of this skeleton was originally the senior brother of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos? With the character of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos, if he knew that there was a skeleton of a cultivator from the Blazing Origin sect in this place, he would definitely bring it away after his rebirth. There was only one reason why he did not come to look for this set of remains. It was because this set of remains had been forgotten by the Ancient Chaos Great Emperor. This was the terrifying aspect of immortal sovereign Zido. He was able to make the people closest to him forget about him. Ning Fan sighed and continued asking. He realized that the origins of these skeletons were really from all kinds of people. There was the descendant of Ziwei. There was the descendant of Big Dipper. There was the intruder who followed immortal Emperor Zhang Qing to invade the illusory world in the past. There was the spy of a certain sect in the illusory world. There was also the thief who came here to search for treasures. Search for treasures? What treasures? Is there any treasure here? Ning Fan was surprised that there was actually someone who came here with a third purpose other than repairing and destroying the seal. Very soon, Ning Fan discovered that there seemed to be more than one thief who came here to search for treasures. This sealed tower is completely empty. Could it be that there is really some treasure here? Ning Fan suppressed these greedy thoughts. Whether or not there was a treasure was not the main problem. Let's repair the seal first. The reason why he spent time talking to the skeletons was just to gather some information and understand the cause of death of these people. Unfortunately, he could not find out anything. Until now, he had not encountered any danger on his way to the top of the tower. In other words, danger would only appear after he starts repairing the immortal sovereign seal. Considering that many immortal sovereigns of Zido who tried to repair the seal had died in this place, it also meant that the risk was not controlled by immortal sovereign Zido's will. That was why he would indiscriminately kill the people who tried to touch the seal, regardless of whether they had good or bad intentions. Ning Fan pondered for a long time. Finally, he patted his storage pouch and took out a golden bamboo tube with a picture of a golden bull on it. There was some golden powder sealed inside the bamboo tube. It was made by grinding the horns of an ancient heavenly bull. It could be used to carve formation marks on the top of the tower. Through the formation marks, hundreds and thousands of repair materials could be refined into the immortal sovereign seal. Carving the formation was not a problem for Ning Fan. In just a few hours, he finished carving the formation. Next, he only needed to follow the method taught by Emperor Jin Heng and place different types of repair materials into the respective positions of the formation eyes. There was an incense table beside the formation. After arranging the repair materials, Ning Fan took out a curved blade of the Taurus Palace which was made from the rib of a heavenly bull. He lit up a few pieces of talisman paper and began to cast the formation. Again, and again, Ning Fan waved the curved blade of the Taurus Palace like a Taoist wielding a peachwood sword while chanting the incantation taught by Emperor Jin Heng. Gradually, the formation marks on the top of the tower began to light up. Pieces of repair materials were absorbed into the formation, turning into a massive amount of repair power that merged into the immortal sovereign seal in the entire Eastern Realm River. After a long time, the immortal sovereign seal which had been drained for many years finally received new power for the first time. All of a sudden, the power of the seal in the entire Realm River showed signs of strengthening. Countless members of the foreign races trembled in fear. The fear of immortal sovereign Zido was awakened from the depths of their bloodline. Immortal sovereign Zido was definitely not a benevolent sovereign. He had never been one. His achievement was to create the Zido immortal domain, which was a world where all living beings were equal. However, before he created the world, he had razed the Ziwei immortal domain and the Big Dipper immortal domain to the ground. This was the reason why the immortal cultivators of Ziwei hated the descendants of Zido. It was also the reason why they were afraid of immortal sovereign Zido. In the divine palace of the Sixth Path, the Grand Divine Sea of the foreign races was discussing something with the quasi-saints of the foreign races. All of a sudden, they sensed that the seal of the Realm River showed signs of strengthening. Their expressions immediately changed. Damn it! Why did the seal of the immortal sovereign seal suddenly strengthen? Could it be that the cultivators of the eastern heaven have infiltrated the sixth path's sealed tower? We endured humiliation and made a deal with the demon conferral summit. We sacrificed our clansmen time and time again to worship blood god Gung Wu. All we wanted was to break the seal of the Eastern Realm River and let all the immortal cultivators of Ziwei return to the mainland to kill all the descendants of Zido. We suffered untold hardships to make the seal dry up to today's situation. How can we allow outsiders to repair the seal? Kill them. All the Zido immortal cultivators deserve to be killed. Which sealed tower has been invaded? Quickly send reinforcements. The Divine Palace's sealed tower is fine, but the sealed tower of the Sky Shadow clan has been destroyed long ago. It seems that the sealed tower of the Sacred Lotus clan has a problem. Grand Divine C, please give the order to quickly support the Sacred Lotus clan. We must not let the ants of the Eastern Heaven successfully repair the immortal sovereign seal of the Eastern Realm River. Immediately, several quasi-saints of the foreign races wanted to help the Sacred Lotus clan, but they were stopped by the Grand Divine C with a gloomy face. Wrong, it's not the Sacred Lotus clan. Those Eastern Heaven cultivators don't have the ability to repair the seal under the eyes of the three saints of the Sacred Lotus. I'm afraid they use some unknown method to use the sealed tower of the Sky Shadow clan. The Grand Divine C said gloomily. What? Wasn't the sealed tower of the Sky Shadow clan destroyed long ago? Stupid! Don't forget what those sealed towers were transformed from, and don't forget that there are still people from the Taurus Palace among the Eastern Heaven cultivators. Is it strange that those Heavenly Bull disciples have a way to repair the destroyed sealed tower? Unfortunately, those ants' plan is flawed, and they don't know that the sealed tower of the Sky Shadow clan had such a big mess in the past. The Heavenly Bull that turned into this tower has already betrayed its promise to Zido Immortal Sovereign. Zido's immortal cultivators want to use this tower to repair the Immortal Sovereign seal? What a pity, what a pity. Those Eastern Heaven ants will be killed by that rebel Heavenly Bull. They simply can't repair the seal. It's not the Eastern Heaven cultivators that are making this old man upset. They don't have the ability to repair the Immortal Sovereign seal, this is certain. The real trouble is that rebel Heavenly Bull. That's an ancient great cultivator. Back then, how many quasi-saints died to destroy his tower? Even the Sky Shadow clan was exterminated because of this battle. Someone, go and inform Lord Blood God. Tell him that the great enemy who severely injured it in the past is going to wake up again. Lord Blood God will certainly be very interested and come to fight that rebel Heavenly Bull. Everything went smoothly. Ning Fan subdued the Immortal Sovereign seal in an orderly manner. Occasionally, Immortal Sovereign Zido's sealing power would overflow and attack Ning Fan. However, Ning Fan activated his primordial true body and neutralized it. He did suffer some injuries, but those injuries were definitely not fatal. Perhaps it could kill Song Di and the others, but it was not enough to kill Ning Fan. It was also not enough to kill ancient great cultivators. Then, here comes the question. Who killed those ancient great cultivators in the skeletons at the top of the tower? There seems to be some kind of danger hidden in the dark. It is different from the will of the Immortal Sovereign Seal. It has its own independent consciousness and no one knows about it. While Ning Fan was puzzled, an unprecedented sense of danger suddenly spread throughout his body. He felt his vision turn black. Then, his primordial true body felt an intense pain as if his bones had cracked, as if he was severely injured by something. In an instant, the world turned upside down and he was swallowed into the stomach of something unknown. What was it that swallowed him? He couldn't even resist. Finally, I'm awake. The entire sealed tower suddenly emitted the chi and voice of a living person. Chapter 1154. The world spun and the space in front of him turned pitch black. Ning Fan felt as if he had been swallowed by something. It was as if he had been directly swallowed from the top of the sealed tower to another dark space. The being that swallowed him was unusually strong. It actually emitted an aura that was comparable to an ancient great cultivator. His nose was filled with a mixture of acid and rotten smell. The dark space he was currently in seemed to be the stomach of that great cultivator. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. Could the ancient great cultivator that swallowed him be the real cause of death of the skeletons on the top of the tower? The improvement of his state of mind allowed him to remain calm and fearless even when facing an ancient great cultivator. He still had the important task of repairing the immortal sovereign seal. How could he be eaten by this great cultivator of unknown origin? Finally, I've woken up. Junior, I've just woken up and I'm very hungry. Are you willing to become my food? In the dark space, a hoarse voice reverberated continuously. It carried the enormous aura of an ancient great cultivator. Its heavy aura pressed down on Ning Fan, trying to squash him to death. This supreme being only knew that Ning Fan was just an ordinary Last Days immortal king. Even an Last Days immortal emperor would have trouble dealing with the suppression of such an aura, let alone a mere immortal king. It had just woken up. Now was the moment when it was at its weakest. It was also the moment when Ning Fan had the highest chance of escaping from its stomach. The voice carried an extremely strong bewitching power, causing Ning Fan's sea of consciousness to shake. Subconsciously, he wanted to agree to become its food. Fortunately, Ning Fan's resistance against illusion techniques was rather high. He instantly woke up from the bewitching state and let out a devil roar, shattering the bewitching voice that reverberated in the dark space. He then activated his ability and rays of light shone from his body, illuminating the dark space. The walls of the stomach were wriggling. This place was indeed the stomach of that supreme being. A mere immortal king like you can actually break my illusion technique? The other party was obviously a little surprised. Ning Fan still did not say a word. He turned his hand and summoned the treasure-searching compass, using it to locate the weakest part of the stomach of this supreme being. In the next moment, he summoned the ocean-defying sword and stabbed it at the weakest part without saying a word. Ding! Even with the weight and sharpness of the sea-defying sword, when it stabbed into the soft stomach wall of this supreme existence, it was actually unable to pierce through. Instead, it produced the sound of metal colliding. Even though Ning Fan did not pierce through the wall of that supreme being's stomach and escape from it, he still managed to inflict great pain on that supreme being who was still in a weakened state. From within the sealed pagoda came the angry roar of an ox or a beast. This roar contained the pressure of an ancient great cultivator. The pressure triggered a torrent under the water. With the sealed tower as the center, the massive water pressure crazily swept over the entire Heaven Shadow clan's vestige. The expressions of Sovereign Jin Hang and the others who were guarding outside the tower changed drastically when they sensed the aura force of the ancient great cultivators inside the tower. How could they not know that something had happened inside the tower and that Ning Fan had encountered an unknown danger? They wanted to rush into the tower to support Ning Fan immediately. However, they could not do so. Instead, due to their lack of strength, they were directly blown away by the massive water pressure in the surroundings. Be it Sovereign Jin Hang and the other two immortal emperors of the tower or the four cultivators who were guarding the formation like the Void Space Emperor, all of them were blown out of the Heaven Shadow clan's vestige by the water pressure. Only then did they barely manage to stabilize their bodies. Their blood and chi were surging and their hearts were pounding. The four-sided formation that was set up around the ruins was shattered by the water pressure released by the ancient great cultivator in just an instant. It seemed so fragile. Damn it! What exactly happened inside the tower? Fellow Taoist Ning must be fine. Sovereign Jin Hang and the others' expressions turned extremely ugly. At the same time, they felt a trace of lingering fear. None of them expected that they would actually encounter an ancient great cultivator's level of danger while repairing the immortal sovereign's seal inside the tower. Ning Fan was the only one who could barely protect himself in the face of such danger. If they were the ones who entered the tower, they would probably be killed by the ancient great cultivator as soon as they saw him. At this moment, Ning Fan's chi was still present. The immortal emperors could still sense his existence even though they were separated by the sealed tower. This made Sovereign Jin Hang and the others who were worried about Ning Fan's safety slightly let out a sigh of relief. However, their expressions were still shrouded by dark clouds in the end. There was no other reason. In the opinion of Sovereign Jin Heng and the others, Ning Fan's chances of surviving after encountering an ancient great cultivator's level of danger were extremely slim. It was even more impossible for him to withstand such a danger and repair the immortal sovereign's seal. Today's operation was probably going to end in failure. Moreover, Ning Fan, the strongest expert of the Realm River Alliance, might be killed because of today's failure. What should we do? Something has happened inside the tower. Should we abandon our plan and retreat immediately? Sovereign Jin Heng sighed. We can't leave. If we leave, fellow Taoist Ning might not be able to return alive from the tower alone. The aura force of the ancient great cultivator inside the tower seems to have a trace of the heavenly bull's qi. Besides, the feeling this tower gives me right now is like a living person that has its own breath. I vaguely know what kind of danger fellow Taoist Ning is facing. However, how is this possible? The Heavenly Bull clan has clearly signed a contract with immortal sovereign Zido. How is it possible for them to betray him? If they encounter a cultivator who is repairing the seal, they definitely won't attack them. Sovereign Jin Heng's expression was extremely unpleasant. He said something that Sovereign Jin Heng and the others could not understand. The sealed tower can only allow one person to enter at a time. If we can't enter the tower, how are we going to support fellow Taoist Ning? Luo Ho asked with a frown. He owed Ning Fan a huge favor. He did not mind using his life to repay Ning Fan when he is in danger. But the problem was, why would he repay Ning Fan? There seemed to be an inside story behind the sudden change in the sealed tower. Besides, Sovereign Jin Heng, who was familiar with the secrets of the Realm River, seemed to have seen through some of it. That was why Luo Ho asked Sovereign Jin Heng for a solution. Just destroy this tower directly. This tower has betrayed its responsibility. It is impossible for us to use this tower as a medium to repair the immortal sovereign seal. Today's plan was a mistake from the very beginning. It was my mistake. I missed the possibility that there might be a traitor of the Heavenly Bull clan in the long river of time. Sovereign Jin Heng's words were still not something everyone could guess. However, they still understood what Sovereign Jin Heng meant. He actually wanted to destroy the sealed tower which he had painstakingly repaired in order to save Ning Fan. Let's attack together. Attack this tower. Sovereign Jin Heng did not wait for the others to hesitate. He took the lead and rushed out. He ignored the pressure brought by the enormous water pressure and forcefully rushed back to the ruins of the Heavenly Shadow clan. He rushed back to the outside of the sealed tower and attacked it. Luo Ho followed closely behind Sovereign Jin Heng and rushed back to the sealed tower to attack. Bai Yulo and the others did not hesitate for too long. In the end, they also rushed back to the ruins of the Heavenly Shadow clan and joined the team to attack the sealed tower. Inside the tower, an illusory bull-horned burly man replaced Ning Fan. He stood beside the formation mark that Ning Fan had carved. He stopped roaring in pain and laughed out of extreme anger. It was him who launched a sneak attack from the side and swallowed Ning Fan. At this moment, Ning Fan was already in his stomach. He only thought that it would be as easy as flipping his palm to devour a doomsday immortal king. However, he did not expect that Ning Fan could break free from his illusion technique and even attack his stomach boldly. It really hurts. This junior's sword is quite powerful. Unfortunately, it is still not enough to pierce through his stomach with this sword. He's indeed an impressive doomsday immortal king. However, that's all he is. In front of an ancient great cultivator like me, an immortal king is just an ant. Liquefied stomach C. Ancient immortal devouring. Borrowing samsara, Zido wind mist. Within the space of the stomach, a stinky sea wave suddenly appeared out of nowhere and rushed towards Ning Fan. That sea wave was none other than the gastric juice that this supreme existence had refined for many years. It was extremely acidic and posed a great threat to Ning Fan. That sea of gastric juice was originally light red in color. However, for some unknown reason, it could actually absorb the small amount of samsara power that immortal sovereign Zido left in the sealed tower and turn it into his own. As such, after the sea of gastric juice absorbed some of the golden purple wind mist, it suddenly turned purple. The sense of threat that it brought to Ning Fan had also increased by a few times out of nowhere. It was almost a fatal threat. Ning Fan's body instinctively sensed the imminent danger of death from the sea of gastric juice that was glowing with purple light. He knew that he must not be drowned by this sea of gastric juice. He must keep these waves at a distance. Sea Steadying Divine Needle, appear. Ning Fan summoned the Sea Steadying Divine Needle and activated its Sea Steadying Divine ability. All of a sudden, the monstrous wave of gastric juice was directly calmed by the Sea Steadying Divine Needle. This ability that could restrain water element abilities was just too heaven-defying. Even though there was a huge gap between Ning Fan's strength and that ancient great cultivator's, he still managed to stabilize the other party's gastric juice with just a single blow with this needle. After succeeding in his attack, Ning Fan's confidence soared and his courage also grew. So what if it's an ancient great cultivator? Since it dares to swallow me into its stomach, it must pay the price. Wishful cudgel. Under my command, grow bigger and longer. Break this person's stomach. As soon as Ning Fan gave the order, the Sea Steadying Divine Needle grew bigger and longer. In the blink of an eye, the tip of the divine needle had already reached the top of the stomach wall. However, it was still growing as if it was going to forcefully break the sky of this space. Bang! A loud bang resounded. Ning Fan actually pierced through the stomach of that supreme existence with the momentum of the Sea Steadying Divine Needle and seized the opportunity to escape from the stomach. On the top of the sealed tower, the illusory bull-horned burly man's face suddenly turned pale. He let out a muffled groan as a bloody hole appeared on his abdomen. Ning Fan held the Sea Steadying Divine Needle that had shrunk back to its original size and escaped while the blood spurted out from the bloody hole. He landed on the ground and held the cudgel in front of his chest while looking at the bull-horned burly man with fear. The other party was also looking at Ning Fan. He did not expect that Ning Fan, a mere immortal king realm cultivator, would actually have the ability to escape from his stomach. When his eyes fell on the Sea Steadying Divine Needle, he immediately understood why Ning Fan was able to escape. It's actually the Sea Steadying Divine Needle. Interesting. A mere doomsday immortal king is actually qualified to use such a divine item. It seems like I have underestimated you a little. The bull-horned burly man sneered. His eyes were filled with greed and fear when he looked at the divine needle. Obviously, he knew about the famous Sea Steadying Divine Needle that suppressed the defying mortal sea in the past. Senior, who are you? Why did you sneak attack me when I was repairing the immortal sovereign seal? On the surface, Ning Fan was asking the bull-horned burly man a question. However, he was secretly activating the power of yin-yang poison. He infused his poison power into the dim light at the top of the pagoda and launched a sneak attack at the bull-horned burly man. Humph! Who do you think you are? How dare you ask about my identity? The bull-horned burly man was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly stopped talking. At the next moment, he spurted out a mouthful of poisonous blood without any warning. His eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect that he, a dignified great cultivator from the ancient times, would actually be ambushed by Ning Fan, a mere immortal king realm cultivator. Using light as a medium to poison? Insignificant tricks. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes are useless. Refine. The bull-horned burly man activated his great cultivation realm magic power and forcefully refined the poison that had invaded his body. Ning Fan's expression changed. One should know that Ning Fan's current poison power had been infused with the red dot of myriad worlds and the complete green wave fire poison. Its power was incomparable to before. Even a first-level quasi-sage would have to suffer a little if they were poisoned by this poison. However, this bull-horned burly man was actually able to forcefully refine the poison power in his body. Is this the strength of an ancient great cultivator? It's way beyond a first-level quasi-sage. What Ning Fan found even more unbelievable was that the damage that the Sea Steadying Divine Needle caused to the bull-horned burly man's stomach was instantly healed after a flash of light appeared on his abdomen. Even the Sea Steadying Divine Needle could not leave any injuries on this man. Ning Fan was not a hot-blooded person. His calmness allowed him to clearly understand the difference between him and this bull-horned burly man in front of him. This bull-horned burly man's strength was definitely not any weaker than Xue Xin. Moreover, if it wasn't because this man had just woken up and his qi was still a little weak, Ning Fan might not even be able to escape from his stomach. He would have been directly digested inside his stomach. It seems like I have no choice but to give up on repairing the Immortal Sovereign's seal today. This man was obviously unwilling to repair the Immortal Sovereign's seal by myself. With him around, even protecting himself would be a problem. How would Ning Fan have the strength to repair the seal? The only thing left was to retreat from this place and find an opportunity to repair the Immortal Sovereign's seal from the other two sealed towers. Compared to the sealed towers that were guarded by ancient great cultivators, be it the sealed towers that were guarded by the great divine priest of the foreign races or the sealed towers that were guarded by the three quasi-saints of the divine Lotus clan. Illusion technique, explode. Under Ning Fan's command, a trace of extremely hidden illusion power suddenly invaded the bull-horned burly man's sea of consciousness. Being caught off guard, the bull-horned burly man was bewitched by Ning Fan's illusion technique for a moment. However, his cultivation base was strong after all. He regained his consciousness almost instantly. It was a trace of illusion technique that Ning Fan had hidden in his poisonous power. Poisoning the bull-horned burly man earlier was not his goal. Instead, he borrowed the power of the poison to secretly send the illusion technique into the bull-horned burly man's body to buy time for him to leave this place. Even though the bull-horned burly man was only bewitched for a moment, it was enough for Ning Fan to run very far away. He had already run from the top of the tower to the first floor of the tower and reached the entrance. The bull-horned burly man flew into a rage out of humiliation. Among all the abilities he possessed, illusion technique might not be the strongest, but it was definitely not weak either. Now, he was actually tricked by a junior with an illusion technique. It was really embarrassing. You won't be able to escape. Heavenly Bull Skin Mark, Space Mark. The bull-horned burly man smiled coldly. On his face, the back of his hands and all the exposed skin on his body, strange marks that looked like palm lines began to appear. It was actually the Heavenly Bull Skin Mark that Ning Fan had seen once in the Taurus Palace. The prestige of the Taurus Palace was inextricably linked to the Heavenly Bull Skin Mark. According to the ancient records, on the day a certain sovereign attained the Tao, the heavens will turned into a sword and severed half of his palm. The severed palm then turned into the Heavenly Bull clan. It was also recorded that the Heavenly Bull Skin Mark was similar to the palm lines of the Saint Defire. From this, it could be seen how profound the origin of the Heavenly Bull Skin Mark was. Ning Fan did not expect that this bull-horned burly man would actually possess the ability of the Heavenly Bull Skin Mark. Moreover, he did not expect that the moment the bull-horned burly man activated the Heavenly Bull Skin Mark, his body was actually teleported away uncontrollably. Originally, he had already taken the opportunity to escape to the entrance of the tower. However, at this moment, he was directly dragged back to the top of the tower by a force of space, right in front of the bull-horned burly man. With the power of the Heavenly Bull Skin Mark, the bull-horned burly man directly sucked Ning Fan back to his side. Then he threw a punch at Ning Fan, intending to smash him into pieces. In a hurry, Ning Fan activated his eternal true body. With the size of this sealed tower, it was enough to accommodate his eternal true body. It was true that the defense of his eternal true body was very high. However, under the punch of the bull-horned burly man, all of his defenses crumbled like dried twigs. Ning Fan spurted out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. His body heavily smashed against the wall of the tower. This was the first time he was instantly killed by someone with a single punch ever since he obtained the God-exterminating shield. This bull-horned burly man was too strong. Ning Fan did not have the slightest chance of winning against him. Even though this man was not as strong as the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor, he was probably a heaven-defying great cultivator from the ancient times who could hardly be a match for him. Interesting. I can't believe you didn't get killed by my punch. Your reflexes are really fast. At the moment when the space changed, you actually had the time to put up your defense. Such reflexes are very suitable for you to cultivate the space mark of the heavenly bull skin mark. What a pity! What a pity! If it was in the past when I didn't hate immortal Emperor Zido, perhaps I wouldn't mind accepting a descendant of immortal Emperor Zido like you as my disciple and teach you my Tao. However, immortal Emperor Zido lied to me. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Be it this damned illusionary world or you damned descendants of immortal Emperor Zido, all of you deserve to die. All of you deserve to die. Heavenly bull skin mark, space mark. The bull-horned burly man once again activated this ability. In an instant, Ning Fan's original position was changed to the space in front of the bull-horned burly man. His vision turned dark and another punch came flying at him. I can't avoid it. The heavenly bull skin mark of this man was too strange. Even if Ning Fan escapes to the ends of the world, this man could still suck him back to the original spot and beat him up. A ray of sword light flew into the sealed pagoda and blocked Ning Fan's path. It was the fate-severing sword that was stuck in the ruins of the Heavenly Shadow clan. It sensed that its master was in danger and came to protect him on its own. If it was an ordinary punch, the fate-severing sword would be able to withstand it. However, this was a punch from an ancient great cultivator. With a cracking sound, the fate-severing sword was broken into several pieces by the bull-horned burly man's punch. The fate-severing sword let out a mournful wail. Its power was completely destroyed. It had fallen. Ning Fan's eyes were immediately filled with anger. He had never paid attention to the fate-severing sword. However, at this moment, he was touched by its loyal act of protecting him. The fact that the sword died for him had angered him. Chapter 1155. Under normal circumstances, immortal king cultivators definitely did not have the qualifications to fight against ancient great cultivators. Back then, when Ancestor Enemo fought against the eyeball monster, countless immortal emperors were killed by Ancestor Enemo. Even the leaders of the four demonic sect and the True Dragon clan were no match for him. Ning Fan knew very well that he was not a match for the bull-horned muscular man. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to ignore the death of the fate-severing sword and act as if nothing had happened. He couldn't suffer losses for nothing. A loyal servant cannot die in vain. Cross Halo activate. Freeze. Seeing that the bull-horned burly man was going to attack again after breaking the fate-severing sword with a single punch, Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a cold light. He suddenly activated the cross-shaped halos and the entire top of the pagoda was engulfed by it. Ink seals flew, black light flashed. Unlike those foreign race experts, the bull-horned man didn't have the East pacifying talisman that could restrain the heaven sealing technique. As such, he was directly immobilized on the spot by the cross-shaped halo. A look of surprise appeared on his face. Ning Fan, on the other hand, seized the opportunity to snatch the broken sword that had fallen to the ground. Then, he retreated at the top of the narrow tower while staring at the bull-horned burly man with fear. If he did not sense wrongly, his cross-shaped halo was not enough to stop this person. With the broken sword in his hand, Ning Fan's brows suddenly twitched as if he had sensed something strange from the broken sword. Then, his expression became a little strange. What kind of halo is this? It actually fused with the East demonic ancestor's sky sealing technique? Interesting, but unfortunately, you chose the wrong person. If the East demonic ancestor used it himself, he might be able to stop me for a while. However, with your weak cultivation, it would be difficult for you to stop me for even an instant. Don't show off your insignificant skills. Heavenly bull skin pattern, space pattern. The bull-horned man chuckled coldly as he struggled violently, instantly freeing himself from the heaven sealing technique. Once again, he used the spatial skin marks of the heavenly bull, trying to pull Ning Fan to his front and launch a heavy punch at him. Golden flames burst out from Ning Fan's true body. His eyes flashed with green light. All of a sudden, the bull-horned burly man's action of activating the heavenly bull spatial skin mark became extremely slow in Ning Fan's eyes. Every movement and every detail became clear to him. Hiss hiss hiss. The invisible spatial suction force produced a hissing sound. In an instant, Ning Fan was once again sucked away from his original spot, making him unable to break free. Boom. The bull-horned burly man's face was filled with disdain. He threw a punch in front of him. This was the third time he threw a punch at Ning Fan. He was confident that he could kill Ning Fan with this punch. But he hit nothing but air. There was no one in front of him. Ning Fan, who was supposed to be sucked to the front of his spatial skin mark, was nowhere to be seen. He did not get sucked to the front to get beaten up. The space behind the bull-horned burly man was suddenly torn apart. Ning Fan's true body of golden flames rushed out from it. Each of his hands was holding a broken sword fragment of the fate-severing sword. Both of them stabbed at the bull-horned burly man's back. He had vaguely seen through some of the laws of the heavenly oxen's skin patterns, which allowed him to break this technique. Not only did he not get sucked to the front of the bullhorn man, but he also used this technique to move to the back of the bullhorn man and launch a sneak attack. This was the moment when the bullhorned man's attack missed and revealed a flaw. This was a perfect sneak attack that could not be dodged. Heavenly bull hide pattern, escape armor pattern. The bullhorned burly man's face darkened. He was infuriated by Ning Fan's location. He did not expect that Ning Fan could actually break his spatial skin mark with just his immortal king realm cultivation base. Almost instinctively, he activated the hidden armor skin mark that could enhance the defense of his physical body, attempting to directly resist Ning Fan's slash with his back. How confident! The fact that Ning Fan was able to break his spatial skin marks with his immortal king realm cultivation base had indeed surprised him. Unfortunately, the threat level of Ning Fan's sneak attack and the slash of the broken sword was too low. He did not put them in his eyes at all. After all, even if the fate-severing sword was in perfect condition, it wouldn't give him any sense of danger. The offensive power of the fate-severing sword could only be considered as ordinary among first-level mid-grade innate experts. It was already not easy for it to injure an ancient great cultivator. Besides, the sword was already destroyed now. The power of the broken sword was less than 1%. It was even more impossible for Ning Fan to injure him with this sword. Moreover, he had also activated the hidden armor skin pattern to strengthen his physical defense. Under such circumstances, if his physical body is still pierced by Ning Fan with a mere broken sword, that would really be hilarious, Poochie. It was the sound of the broken sword piercing through his skin and flesh. The bull-horned burly man's expression changed drastically. As soon as he felt the pain on his back, he felt a great sense of danger. His body flashed and he directly retreated 100 zhang away. Fortunately, his reaction was fast enough. His back was only pierced a little bit by the broken sword. The wound was not too deep and the injury was almost non-existent. Even so, a drop of cold sweat still trickled down the bull-horned burly man's forehead. When he looked at Ning Fan again, his eyes were filled with fear. His body's instincts told him that if he did not dodge in time just now, he would have been killed by Ning Fan's sword. Even if he was an ancient great cultivator, he would not be able to withstand the destructive power of Ning Fan's broken sword. He could not understand it. The fate-severing sword that was in perfect condition obviously did not have the ability to injure him. Why was it able to break his defense so easily even though its power was less than 1% after it was broken? Under the bull-horned burly man's widened eyes, the sword intent of the broken sword in Ning Fan's hand dispersed. Primordial white lotus flowers that were pure and glowed faintly appeared around Ning Fan's body while carrying mist. It's actually the sword intent lotus. Impossible! How is it possible for an immortal king to cultivate such a legendary ancient sword intent? The bull-horned burly man's expression changed drastically. The sword intent lotus was a supreme sword intent that only third-step sword cultivators in the legends could cultivate. Once the lotus sword is activated, a sage will die. It was incomparably powerful. How could Ning Fan, a mere doomsday immortal king, understand such an ancient sword intent? How could he use it? No wonder he was easily wounded by the broken sword. A sword intent that could even kill a sage was certainly more than enough to kill an ancient great cultivator like him. Despicable! You purposely made me break your sword in an attempt to make me look down on this sword and let my guard down. Then, you used the supreme sword intent in the broken sword to ambush me, catching me off guard. What a great scheme. What a great scheme. If it wasn't for my cautiousness, I might really have been killed by your sword. How hateful. The bull-horned burly man cursed. As he was cursing, he instinctively retreated as if he did not dare to get too close to Ning Fan's lotus sword intent. Moreover, he did not dare to absorb Ning Fan's spatial skin marks recklessly anymore. What if Ning Fan used the power of the spatial skin marks to fly to his side and ambush him with the supreme sword intent? Ning Fan, who was criticized as despicable by an ancient great cultivator as if he was facing a formidable enemy, felt very innocent. In fact, Ning Fan himself also did not know that the fate-severing sword actually contained a trace of ancient sword intent that took the form of a lotus. Before this, he did not know that the sword intent could give birth to a lotus or not. It was only after the sword was broken that he realized the uniqueness of this sword. This lotus sword intent contained the power of a third-step sword cultivator. Because the sword cultivator who forged this sword had deliberately restricted it, this hidden lotus sword intent would only be able to see the light of day when the fate-severing sword is broken. It was not the sword intent that was left in the sword by an ancient sword cultivator unintentionally. Instead, it was the sword intent that the ancient sword cultivator purposely nurtured. That's right. Something like sword intent could be nurtured. Rumor has it that every ancient sword cultivator was an expert in forging swords. What these ancient sword cultivators loved to do all their lives was to nurture their swords. Those who were bloodthirsty would use the lives of the common people to nurture their swords, while those who were crazy would even use their own lives to nurture their swords. Of course, there were also some sword cultivators who did not like killing, who used the method of forging sword embryos to nurture their sword intent. The true identity of the fate-severing sword was not a killing weapon but a sword embryo. The purpose of its existence was to act as a carrier to nurture the ancient sword intent called sword intent lotus. When the sword intent inside it matured, the sword would choose to destroy itself on its own to release the matured ancient sword intent inside it. Protecting its master on its own? Stop joking. This sword does not have much affection for Ning Fan. How is it possible for it to protect its master on its own? It's just impossible just by thinking about it. It just wants to find a suitable place to destroy itself and release the matured ancient sword intent inside it to complete its mission. Even if an ordinary person wants to destroy a mid-grade innate magic treasure, it would not be an easy task. As an ancient great cultivator, the bull-horned burly man had the ability to do it easily. That was why the fate-severing sword would sacrifice itself to fulfill its mission. It was indeed very loyal. For its first master who forged it, it could sacrifice its life to release the ancient sword intent inside its body. However, the person it was loyal to had nothing to do with Ning Fan at all. Ning Fan's anger because of the sword's death was completely self-willed. Ning Fan's expression did not show it, but he was rather speechless inwardly. When he sensed the sword intent inside the fate-severing sword, he vaguely guessed the truth. To think that he was touched by the sword's loyalty to protect its master and planned to risk his life to fight an ancient great cultivator for the sake of this sword. It turned out that he was overthinking. The bull-horned burly man kept his guard up against Ning Fan as if he was facing a formidable enemy. With his great eyesight, he gradually realized that the sword intent of the third step that Ning Fan used was not something that he personally comprehended. Instead, it was something that was hidden inside the fate-severing sword. So, it's a sword embryo. No wonder the broken sword is stronger than the undamaged sword. So that's how it is. The bull-horned burly man understood the key point, but he still did not dare to be careless when facing Ning Fan. He could tell that the lotus sword intent contained in the fate-severing sword was not much. In fact, he had made a big fuss over a minor issue just now. The amount of sword intent that Ning Fan possessed was definitely not enough to kill him. However, there were still many chances for Ning Fan to injure his foundation. It took him a long time to wake up. His chi was already weak in the first place, and he was eager to eat to replenish his strength. How could he be willing to let Ning Fan injure his foundation at this critical moment? In that case, even though Ning Fan did not possess a lot of Lotus Sword intent, he was also unwilling to continue fighting Ning Fan after weighing the pros and cons. Rumble. Rumble. The entire sealed tower suddenly began to shake violently. It was Sovereign Jin Heng and the others who were outside attacking the sealed tower in an attempt to save Ning Fan. The bull-horned burly man's originally gloomy expressions suddenly turned cheerful. He burst into laughter and said to Ning Fan, Good. Since you are able to injure me a little with your immortal king body, you have the right to continue living. Do you feel the shaking of the sealed tower? Those companions of yours seem to be anxiously waiting outside the tower to save you. They are really a group of reliable companions. Young man, you are really not bad. I admire you very much. I won't kill you today. Just leave. The bull-horned burly man spoke with a tone that seemed to say, I'm being merciful today, or, you can leave, or, young man, I have high hopes for you. Ning Fan's expression was strange. He looked at the bull-horned burly man and was rendered speechless by his shamelessness. This man was obviously afraid of the Lotus Sword intent of the broken fate-severing sword, but he actually said that he was being merciful today. His skin was really thick. In fact, Ning Fan did not mind making peace with this bull-horned burly man. He did not want to fight to the death with such an expert in the first place. The reason why he was angry just now was just because his fate-severing sword was destroyed and because he was touched. Unfortunately, that touch was just his imagination. He did not seem to have any reason to fight the bull-horned burly man anymore. The Lotus Sword intent was an unexpected gain. It was also very powerful. However, the amount of sword intent was obviously not enough to kill ancient great cultivators. Even if he used it to kill a second-level quasi-saint, it was still not enough. Since he could not kill this bull-horned burly man with a single strike, Ning Fan naturally did not plan to use up all the Lotus Sword intent that he obtained unexpectedly. Without enough benefits, why would he use up the precious Lotus Sword intent? These were the spoils of war that he exchanged for losing the fate-severing sword. The sealed tower shook violently. It was the evidence that Emperor Jin Heng and the others were rushing to save him outside. It made Ning Fan feel a little warm. The feeling of having companions to fight monsters with seems to be really good, even though those companions are very weak. However, he did not plan to leave just yet. In fact, when he had the ability to break the suction force of the skin marks in the heavenly bull space, he already had the ability to ignore the bull-horned burly man's pursuit and escape from this place alone. Even though he was not a match for the bull-horned burly man, after familiarizing himself with his skin marks, the bull-horned burly man would not be able to stop him if he wanted to leave. Moreover, he had also accidentally obtained a Lotus Sword intent which could be used to intimidate this ancient great cultivator who was in a weakened state. That's right. This man was afraid of such a large amount of Lotus Sword intent because he was in a weakened state. If this man returns to his peak state, the Lotus Sword intent in Ning Fan's hand might not be able to cause serious injuries to his foundation and the deterrence would no longer exist. Young man, I have already decided to let you go. Why aren't you leaving yet? Don't tell me that you still want to stay here and repair the Immortal Sovereign's seal? I'm warning you that there is no room for negotiation. I have a grudge against the Immortal Sovereign. Immortal Sovereign Zido has deceived me. I will not give you guys the chance to repair the seal. I'm very happy to see those descendants of Ziwei running out of the water domain and chasing after your immortal sovereign Zido. The bull-horned burly man was a little dissatisfied when he saw Ning Fan still not leaving. He snorted coldly. It seemed like this man really had a grudge against immortal sovereign Zido. That was why he was hostile to all the descendants of Zido. However, after witnessing this man's shamelessness and adaptability, Ning Fan faintly felt that he was not a stubborn person. On the contrary, he was a tactful and flexible person. There should be nothing that cannot be discussed when dealing with such a person. Is there really no room for negotiation? Ning Fan looked at the bull-horned burly man meaningfully. After breaking the latter's skin marks, he was no longer afraid of him. When he was talking to him, he also felt much more confident. It's not really that there is no room for negotiation. How about this? Give me the broken sword in your hand first, and I will let you repair the immortal sovereign's seal here. What do you think? The bull-horned burly man suddenly changed the topic and stared at the broken sword in Ning Fan's hand greedily. Senior, are you joking? Ning Fan frowned. This broken sword was one of his trump cards to protect himself when facing the bull-horned burly man. How could he give it to him just like that? He was not an idiot. Humph. You don't have any sincerity at all. If that's the case, there is no room for negotiation about repairing the seal. As long as I'm here, I will definitely not let you repair the seal. Even though the bull-horned burly man said that there was no room for negotiation, his eyes suddenly rolled and he chuckled. It seems like there is still room for negotiation. Ning Fan thought to himself. May I know Senior's name? What kind of grudge do you have against my immortal sovereign Zido cultivator? Ning Fan suddenly asked. I am Yo Manshan. As for the grudge between me and your immortal sovereign Zido cultivator, why do you have to ask when you already know the answer? As soon as the bull-horned burly man mentioned the grudge in the past, his tone instantly became a little hostile as if he had recalled some unpleasant memories. Chapter 1156. Yo Manshan? Ning Fan had never heard of this name before. Naturally, he did not know what kind of grudge this person had with immortal sovereign Zido. If Emperor Jin Heng was here, given his understanding of the secrets of the Realm River, he might know the whole story of this matter. Anyway, Ning Fan would not know about it. Outside, the sealed tower was still shaking. This was the proof that Emperor Jin Heng and the others were determined to destroy the sealed tower. Unfortunately, Nyo Manshan only needed to wave his hand to strengthen the sealed pagoda's defenses countless times over. He did not plan to give Emperor Jin Heng and the others a chance to break the pagoda. Speaking of the grudges in the past, Nyo Manshan could not let it go no matter what. Seeing that Ning Fan really did not know about this matter, his anger subsided a little. With a cold expression, he told Ning Fan what happened in the past in a simplified manner. It was rumored that on the day a certain ancient emperor attained the Tao, the will of the heavens transformed into a sword and sliced off half of his palm, creating the Heavenly Bull race. This was the beginning of the Heavenly Bull race. The Heavenly Bull clan's Heavenly Bull skin pattern was extremely powerful, but for some reason, this clan had never been able to produce a true saint since ancient times. The highest cultivation level was only a quasi-saint. Since ancient times, the powerful warriors of Heavenly Bull tribe had been searching for a way to become a saint. To give birth to a saint, this tribe had served countless saints and Saint Defire, all for the sake of a future. It was a pity that none of the saints or Saint Defire were willing to help this race give birth to a saint. Everyone said that if they wanted to help Heavenly Bull give birth to a saint, they would have to pay a huge price. After a few twists and turns, the clan finally attached themselves to the infamous Celestial Emperor Zido. This was because Celestial Emperor Zido said with certainty that he was willing to pay the price to help the clan give birth to a saint. However, he needed the Celestial Bull clan to wait patiently for him to settle the invaders of Zido's celestial domain. Right now, the Tribulation race is invading the defying mortal sea, and the battle has yet to end. After we defeat the invaders, I will naturally enlighten your Heavenly Bull race to become a saint. This was immortal Emperor Zido's promise all those years ago. Thus, the Heavenly Bull clan waited patiently until the Purple Doe immortal realm was destroyed. In the end, Celestial Emperor Zido died before he could help the tribe give birth to a saint. Countless powerhouses of the Heavenly Bull tribe died in battle to protect the Zido immortal realm. Only a few powerhouses of the Heavenly Bull tribe had been ordered to guard the sealed tower of the Boundary River for Zido Immortal Emperor, so they did not die with the Zido Immortal Realm. The small number of Heavenly Bull clan warriors still abided by the agreement with Immortal Emperor Zido. Their physical bodies turned into the sealed tower to guard the border river, and their true spirits turned into loyal guards to guard the sealed tower and suppress the alien races. Even if the Zido Immortal Domain was destroyed, even if the Zido Immortal Sovereign had fallen, even if countless years had passed, the Heavenly Bull powerhouses still believed that the Zido Immortal Sovereign had not forgotten about them. Perhaps immortal Emperor Zido had made some kind of arrangement before his death to fulfill his promise back then and help the Heavenly Bull tribe give birth to a saint. But he didn't. All his expectations were only met with disappointment in the end. After a billion years, the true spirits of the Heavenly Bull that were guarding the sealed tower in the eastern border river grew old and died. Their immortal lifespans were exhausted and they turned into ashes under the heavenly tribulation. Only the sealed tower formed by their corpses was left to guard the border river forever. Nyo Manshan was the last clansman of the Heavenly Bull race. If he also fell, the bloodline of the Heavenly Bull race would be severed from now on. Unlike the other members of the Heavenly Bull race, he did not believe immortal sovereign Zido. He did not believe him from the very beginning. He had advised his clansmen countless times to leave the Zido immortal domain and return to the territory of the Heavenly Bull race to give up the illusory dream of becoming a saint. However, the members of the Heavenly Bull race refused to listen to him. Thus, he could only watch his clansmen die one after another for a promise that was never to be fulfilled. Is Senior's hatred towards immortal sovereign Zido because he did not fulfill his promise in time? Therefore, every time immortal sovereign Zido enters this tower with the intention of repairing the seal, you would kill them as revenge? Ning Fan sighed and asked. It could be inferred that immortal sovereign Zido did not intentionally deceive the Heavenly Bull race. Under that kind of situation, even immortal sovereign Zido himself had fallen. The entire Zido immortal domain was destroyed. How could he care about the matter of the Heavenly Bull race becoming a saint? After all, it was immortal sovereign Zido who had failed the Heavenly Bull race. Even though Ning Fan could understand Nyo Manshan's repeated revenge because of this, he did not dare to agree with him. Don't think of my Heavenly Bull race as treacherous villains. The immortal sovereign Zido cultivators who died at the top of the tower were all ancient cultivators who deserved to die or were controlled by the tribulation intent. That year, I had not really made up my mind to betray the Zido immortal domain. Those people who came to the top of the tower were not trying to repair the seal. All of them wanted to tear the seal apart and wreak havoc in the illusionary world. That was why I killed them. It was only in recent years that I became disheartened and made up my mind to break the seal and escape from this place. During the age of Dharma decline, there was no immortal sovereign Zido who had the ability to come down to the realm river to repair the seal. That was why I had never killed any Eastern Heaven cultivators. In the past 100 million years, you are the only Eastern Heaven cultivator who entered this place. You are also the only descendant of Zido who was almost killed by me. Speaking of attacking Ning Fan, Nyo Manshan did not feel guilty at all. There was only deep disappointment in his heart, disappointment towards immortal sovereign Zido. Nyo Manshan continued to tell the story. He had long wanted to stop abiding by the contract and guard the realm river for immortal sovereign Zido. Immortal sovereign Zido's seal not only sealed the foreign races in the realm river but also the true spirits of the Heavenly Bull race like Nyo Manshan. They would never be able to leave the sealed tower for the rest of their lives unless the immortal sovereign's seal is destroyed. In the past, Nyo Manshan only managed to escape from the sealed tower once under the premise that the immortal sovereign's seal was not destroyed. It was exactly because Nyo Manshan walked out of the sealed tower that the entire Heavenly Shadow clan was annihilated. All of them died in his hands. Unfortunately, Nyo Manshan was in an extremely weak state when he just walked out of the sealed tower. Then he was besieged by the group of demi-saints of the foreign races including Blood God Gungwu. Even though Nyo Manshan was brave enough to kill several demi-saints of the Heavenly Shadow clan and severely injure Blood God Gungwu, those demi-saints of the foreign races still took the opportunity to severely injure him and destroy the sealed tower. The sealed tower was formed from Nyo Manshan's physical body. It was the foundation of his body. As soon as the tower was destroyed, Nyo Manshan's true spirit was implicated and vanished into thin air. This kind of disappearance did not mean that he was dead. Instead, he was in a deep sleep. If someone could repair the sealed tower, Nyo Manshan could still wake up along with the space inside the tower. Nyo Manshan did not hide these things from Ning Fan and told him everything. After hearing these stories, Ning Fan sympathized with the Heavenly Bull clan very much. However, sympathy was just sympathy. He would not give up on repairing the immortal sovereign's seal just because of this reason. After saying so much, what do you want in order for Senior to allow me to repair the seal of this place? A straightforward person will not resort to insinuations. If there is really no room for negotiation, Senior will not talk nonsense with me at all. Tell me your conditions. If it is within my capabilities, we can still negotiate. Ning Fan went straight to the point. Fine. Since things have come to this, it would be a little too much for me to act pretentiously. As long as you agree to 3 of my conditions, I will allow you to repair the immortal sovereign's seal here. What conditions? First, you need to help me escape from this tower. Senior is restrained by the immortal sovereign seal. Unless all the seals are destroyed, you won't be able to escape. It is impossible for me to destroy all the seals in the eastern boundary river and help Senior escape. Forgive me for not being able to agree to this condition. Ning Fan refused. Who told you that you must destroy all the immortal sovereign seals in order to escape from this place? If that's the case, how did I manage to go out and slaughter the Heavenly Shadow clan before the immortal sovereign seal was completely destroyed? In other words, there is a way to ignore the immortal sovereign seal and escape. Ning Fan was surprised. That's right. However, this method requires me to pay a huge price. If I have your help, the price I have to pay will undoubtedly be reduced by a lot. How about it? Do you agree to this condition? Ning Fan frowned and remained silent. If he could save Niu Manshan without destroying the immortal sovereign seal, it was not impossible for him to agree to this condition. The problem was, would Niu Manshan seek revenge on Zido after escaping from the sealed tower and the eastern boundary river? Without a doubt, Niu Manshan hated Zido. If he regained his freedom, would he run to the eastern heaven and start a massacre? I know what you are worried about. Next, it is my second condition. I can swear a great oath of Heart Devil that as long as I regain my freedom, I will never seek revenge on Zido's descendants. Of course, a small-scale revenge is still necessary. Once I regain my freedom, I will definitely kill 1 billion Zido's descendants to vent my anger. Do you agree to this condition? Impossible. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He rejected without even thinking. How could he allow Niu Manshan to kill wantonly in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds? 800 million. 800 million should be fine, right? I'm already being very generous by not killing all the descendants of Zido. You should know that my entire Heavenly Bull clan died because of Zido Immortal Domain. Immortal Sovereign Zido has broken his promise. Doesn't he have to pay the price? Niu Manshan said with dissatisfaction, somewhat blaming Ning Fan for not being sensible. It's just the death of 800 million people. What's the big deal? He had already given in. If Ning Fan still doesn't agree, it would mean that he was not giving him face. Ning Fan coldly rejected. 600 million. No. 500 million. Not even 1. If you have the intention to take revenge on Zido Immortal Sovereign after you are rescued, I will definitely not let you go. Ning Fan sneered. Damn it. You don't have any sincerity to negotiate. Let's just forget about this matter. All right. If that's the case, I will go to the other sealed towers to repair the seals. There are 3 sealed towers on the 6th path. It's not like this place is the only one. However, if that's the case, Senior won't be able to help you get out of here. Moreover, I will even try to stop Senior from getting out of here. How dare you threaten me? You're courting death. Niu Manshan was enraged. He hated being threatened the most. He raised his hand and displayed his spatial skin mark, trying to capture and kill Ning Fan. Ning Fan sneered. Ever since he was very young, he knew that in order to negotiate with someone equally, he must have the same level of strength. The reason why he dared to talk nonsense to Niu Manshan was because he had the ability to do so. Niu Manshan's spatial skin mark sucked in air again. Borrowing the spatial suction force from Niu Manshan, Ning Fan instantly got close to Niu Manshan's back and wielded the fate-severing sword. Damn it. This time, Niu Manshan was more vigilant. He dodged the attack quickly and was not pierced by the fate-severing sword. Even so, Cold sweat broke out on his forehead again because he was almost pierced by that lotus sword intent. After that attack, Niu Mansion's anger subsided a little. He gnashed his teeth and glared at Ning Fan. If it wasn't because he could not get rid of Ning Fan, he would definitely skin Ning Fan alive to vent his hatred. Why would he put down his status as an ancient great cultivator to make a deal with Ning Fan, an immortal king? I can agree to Senior's first request. However, I also have a request. After Senior gets out of here, you must stay by my side for 3,000 years. Within 3,000 years, I will plant a restriction on Senior as a form of restraint. After 3,000 years, I will set Senior free. However, Senior must also promise me that you won't kill a single purple dough immortal cultivator for the rest of your life. Ning Fan turned around and made a request to Niu Mansion. Impossible. Who do you think I am? How can I listen to you? Not to mention 3,000 years, even 300 years or 30 years won't do. Since that's the case, let's both take a step back. I can promise to help Senior get out of here. However, Senior must promise that you won't kill any purple dough immortal cultivator after you regain your freedom. If I can't even agree to this request, I will never let Senior go. Ning Fan knew that it was impossible for Niu Mansion to submit to him. Thus, he made a slight concession. Niu Mansion finally realized that not killing purple dough immortal cultivators was Ning Fan's bottom line. He really could not understand Ning Fan. What's wrong with killing a few 100 million people? To a powerful cultivator, it's just a small matter, alright? If it's someone else who comes to negotiate with him, they might not necessarily agree to it. Sacrificing a few 100 million people could repair the immortal sovereign's seal and protect the eastern heavens cultivators that were thousands of times more. No matter how he looked at it, the eastern heaven would benefit. However, Ning Fan refused to do so stubbornly and even did not hesitate to fight him again. Isn't this young man's principle a little too strong? Never mind, I can swear on the Great Heart Demon Oath, and I can even swear on the Great Karma Oath. If you rescue me from this predicament, then I'll absolutely not indiscriminately kill a single descendant of Violet Doe. Of course, if they offend me first, then don't blame me for being in the right and killing them. There are so many conflicts of interest in the cultivation world. Even if I don't take the initiative, as long as there are benefits to be gained, there will still be descendants of purple dough immortal cultivators who don't know what's good for them and seek trouble with me. I will slowly kill these people who don't know what's good for them. One day, I will kill 1 billion people. Great Karma Oath? Ning Fan was surprised. It was his first time hearing about such an oath. This is an oath that has a higher standard than the Great Heart Devil Oath. Even third-step saints have to abide by it. Once I make this oath, I won't violate it no matter what. Don't worry, Niu Mansion explained. By the way, my second request is to kill 1 billion people. Since you don't agree to it, I'll have to make another request. Niu Mansion said again. Sure. About the chaos of the Realm River. Even though I have just awakened, I have gathered some information through some channels. I'm very interested in the chaos of the Realm River this time. I want to go to the Western Heaven after I get out of here and fight against the Buddhas of this generation there. Don't worry. I won't go to the Western Heaven and kill people indiscriminately. There are so many third-step sword intents. Your Lotus Sword intent is just one of them, which is fated with Buddha. How about giving me your broken sword? Ning Fan frowned and pondered for a while. How could Ning Fan not know how precious the Lotus Sword intent in the fate-severing sword was? Since it could be valued so highly by an ancient great cultivator, it was certainly not an ordinary item. Exchanging it for the restoration of the seal was a little too much. However, it was just an external object. Ning Fan was still willing to give it up. No matter what, he would not sit by and watch the people he valued die in the chaos of the Eastern Heaven. I can agree to this. You're really generous to agree to such a request. Niu Mansion was full of smiles. He raised his hand, wanting to take the fate-severing sword from Ning Fan's hand. Not now. I'll restore the seal first, and then I'll give you the broken sword. Ning Fan avoided Niu Mansion's large hand and said indifferently. How troublesome. Who do you think I am? Do you think I will go back on my words after taking your treasure? I've already made a great karma oath. Nyo Manshan said discontentedly. Your great karma oath only includes not killing the innocent. It didn't say that you will definitely let me restore the immortal sovereign seal. I'll only give it to you after I'm done with it. Ning Fan said cautiously. He kept the fate-severing sword. At the same time, he secretly kept a tiny bit of sword intent. The tiny bit of sword intent that was kept was not enough for him to kill people. However, it was still possible for him to use it to gain enlightenment. Even though Ning Fan had decided to give up this item, he was also interested in the lotus sword intent. Thus, he decided to keep a trace of it to study it slowly. You're really petty. Fine. Next, it's my third request. I need a son to inherit the bloodline of my Heavenly Bull clan. Can you agree to this? Inherit the bloodline? Ning Fan frowned. To mortals, it was very easy to have a son. They just needed to give birth to more children. Even if they were infertile, it was not impossible to cure them. However, to cultivators, it was definitely not easy to have a son. The higher one's cultivation base was, the harder it would be to have a child. The stronger the bloodline, the harder it would be. The bloodline of the Heavenly Bull clan was naturally extremely strong. Moreover, Nyo Manshan was an ancient great cultivator who had almost lost the ability to give birth to descendants. Unless he had the help of the sacrificial vessel of the Heavenly Bull clan or he found another secret method to give birth to a child. Don't worry. My Heavenly Bull clan is very indifferent towards the matter of having a foster son. I'm not looking for a biological son. I just want to find a foster son who is compatible with the cultivation method of the Heavenly Bull clan and pass the bloodline to him. The bloodline of the Heavenly Bull clan cannot end in my hands. You have to agree to this. If it's just looking for a foster son, it's not difficult. If that's the case, then you can be my son. Nyo Manshan looked at Ning Fan with an expression that said, "You're going to make a huge profit, brat?" Or, "Hurry up and agree." Ning Fan was speechless. He already had a father and a mother. Why would he want another foster father? I have parents. That won't do. My Heavenly Bull clan has a rule. We can't accept a foster son whose parents are still alive. No way. You don't have the right to be my son. When your parents are dead, you can come and find me. Nyo Manshan said to Ning Fan with a look of disdain. Ning Fan's face immediately darkened. Does this Nyo Manshan know how to speak like a human? Your parents are the ones who are dead. Humph. My parents have already died. Moreover, they died fighting for the Zido immortal domain. Even 13 of my foster sons died in the battle. Damn it. Damn it. Nyo Manshan gritted his teeth in hatred when he thought of this. He wished he could kill every single member of the Zido immortal domain. However, he was also struggling with the matter of taking revenge on the Zido immortal domain. So many members of the clan had died protecting the Zido immortal domain. Would he really be willing to destroy the world that the members of the Heavenly Bull clan had risked their lives to protect? Ning Fan was very doubtful. From the beginning, he could vaguely see that Nyo Manshan was not telling the truth and was struggling with his inner thoughts. Otherwise, he would definitely not waste time talking nonsense with this person. If this person could be loyal to the Zido immortal domain, it would undoubtedly increase the combat power of the Zido immortal domain by 1 level after he is freed. Of course, if this person is released without any restrictions, he might also become a great calamity in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds. Ning Fan still needed to work hard to balance out the restrictions. Your Heavenly Bull clan is really a loyal clan. Ning Fan said with a sigh. Ning Fan's words were sincere and it made Nyo Manshan feel very comfortable. It was one thing that he did not like the Zido immortal domain, but he was still very happy to hear others praising his clan members. I originally wanted to adopt you as my son. Unfortunately, you don't meet the requirements. How about this? I'll change my third request. After I'm freed, you must promise to help me find a few sons. I won't ask you to help me for free. I'll give you some benefits every time you find a son. What do you think? All right. Ning Fan was calculating. Among the geniuses under him, many of them seemed to have lost their parents. If Old Wu and the others were to be Niu Manshan's sons, he did not know if they would reject him. Since they had already reached an agreement, Niu Manshan reiterated the agreement and made a double oath of hearts, devil, and karma with Ning Fan. After that, Niu Manshan took the initiative to help Ning Fan repair the immortal sovereign seal. However, he did not allow Ning Fan to repair all the seals at once. Instead, he left some of them unrepaired. According to Niu Manshan, the immortal sovereign seal did not need to be repaired until it was undamaged. It was already enough to stop all the foreign races from coming out of the water. If he really repaired the seal until it was undamaged, on one hand, Ning Fan would have to pay a huge price and his cultivation base might be damaged. On the other hand, the undamaged seal would not allow Niu Manshan to escape. Niu Manshan had been longing for freedom in the outside world for a very long time. He did not want to die here. He still wanted to continue the bloodline of the Heavenly Bull clan in the outside world. The damage of the immortal sovereign seal had already reached 86%. This time, Ning Fan repaired the seal to 99% in one go. He did not repair the last 10%. After checking for a while, he realized that he would have to pay a huge price to perfectly repair the seal. Thus, he gave up. The power of the seal was enough to barely protect Dong Tian. There was no need to pursue perfection. Ning Fan was not the kind of person who would sacrifice his life for the sake of pursuing perfection. Finally, Ning Fan's purpose of diving into the water this time was achieved. At the moment when the seal was repaired to 99%, all the foreign experts' expressions changed. They were filled with rage. Outside the sealed tower, Sovereign Jin Heng and the others were stunned at first. Then they were overjoyed. Dong Tian is safe now. Sovereign Jin Heng and the others laughed heartily. They did not expect that Ning Fan could repair the immortal sovereign's seal despite the danger of ancient grand cultivators. It was truly heaven-defying. Dong Tian is safe now. But all of you must die. It was the furious voice of the great divine priest of the foreign races. His voice reverberated throughout the ruins of the Heavenly Shadow clan. The chaos in the eastern boundary river had finally come to an end after the immortal sovereign seal was repaired. The plan of the foreign races to wreak havoc in Dong Tian had become a piece of paper. How could he not hate them? The great divine priest was about to go mad with anger. He had imagined countless scenarios when he came to the Heavenly Shadow clan. However, he did not expect that the other party had already repaired the immortal sovereign seal as soon as he arrived. The speed of repair was too fast. Could it be that Niu Manshan actually took the initiative to repair the seal? How was this possible? Did Niu Manshan hate Zido to the bone? Why would he take the initiative to help Zido repair the seal? Could it be that the person Zido sent to the repair tower was someone who was extremely good at talking? He actually managed to convince Niu Manshan to help repair the seal. Who is it? Who ruined this old man's plan? I will tear his body into 1,000 pieces. The great divine priest's angry roar carried the terrifying pressure of a second-level demi-saint. It was like the sky was overturning and the sea was overturning. It pressed down on the Archjin Heng and the others below. A moment ago, the Archjin Heng and the others were overjoyed. The next moment, they were so frightened that their faces were drained of blood. This was because the foreign race's army had arrived. Not only did the second-level demi-saint great divine priest come, but there were also several other demi-saints behind him. Their auras were like the sky, sealing the area so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. There was no way to escape. We will die. Fortunately, we will die a worthy death, a worthy death. I have been selfish all my life. I never thought that one day I would die for the sake of the world. Ah, very good, very good. I have not let down my entire life of cultivation. The Archjin Heng and the others suddenly burst into laughter. Even though they were pale from the great divine priest's ferocious aura, they still laughed fearlessly. They had made up their minds to come to the bottom of the water. They had asked for benevolence, and they had received it. The great divine priest waved his hand and the demi-saints behind him charged at the Archjin Heng and the others. Inside the sealed tower, Ning Fan, who had sensed the situation, was about to act. Suddenly, a few sighs came from the empty bottom of the water. I didn't expect that we, the Eastern Heavens demi-saints, who have cultivated the Tao for our entire life, would lose our courage. We have to be cautious in everything we do. We are not as good as these juniors who have seen through life and death. All of you have done very well. You can retreat now. Just leave the rest to us old men. Suddenly, a bright light shone from the bottom of the water. Within the light, Xiang Bozi, Taoist Mu Song, Old Man Ho Tu, and a few demi-saints of the Southern clan appeared in front of everyone. As the Eastern Heavens demi-saints, they still came to the bottom of the Boundary River under the drive of their sense of responsibility. There were also the Eastern Heavens immortal emperors, immortal kings, and immortal venerables who did not participate in the operation this time. All of them followed the Eastern Heavens demi-saints. Among them, there were also the Eastern Heavens women who were led by Zhang Yu and Old Wu's subordinates like Ning Fan. Where is that little fellow? Zhang Yu's cold eyes swept across the ruins of the Heavenly Shadow clan with a hint of imperceptible anxiety. When he sensed that Ning Fan was in the sealed tower and his chi was safe and sound, he heaved a sigh of relief. How dare you! A mere Eastern Heavens demi-saint dares to act presumptuously at the bottom of my Boundary River? Don't you want to live anymore? A first-level demi-saint of the foreign race roared furiously and directly rushed towards Zhang Yu. Zhang Yu harumphed disdainfully. A ray of moonlight that carried the aura force of a first-level demi-saint suddenly shot out, causing the demi-saint of the foreign race to retreat in a sorry state. He coughed out some blood and was greatly shocked. Demi-saint, when did you appear among the Eastern Heavens demi-saints? Who are you? You're asking me who I am? Listen carefully. I'm the concubine of the Eastern Heavens Yama King, Zhang Yu. I'm very angry that you want to touch that little fellow. Chapter 1157. What? This woman was actually the ancient Emperor Zhang Yu immortal concubine. Didn't immortal concubine Zhang Yu die long ago? I heard that immortal concubine Zhang Yu was only a 9-tribulation immortal emperor when she was alive. How did she break through to the quasi-sage stage? Be careful. This woman is an ancient cultivation great emperor. Once she becomes a sage-to-be, she won't be a match for a first-stage sage-to-be from the Dharma-ending era. Her strength is almost comparable to a second-stage sage-to-be. Are you kidding me? The dignified Zhang Yu immortal concubine actually claimed to be someone else's concubine? Who was the king of the Eastern Heavens? What right did he have to tell this woman to bow down? Could it be that this East Heaven Yama is the same person as the white-robed Yama? Hearing Zhang Yu's name, the expressions of the demi-saints of the foreign races changed and they started guessing. The truth was just like what these quasi-saints of the foreign races had guessed. Be it the white-robed Yama or the Eastern Heaven Yama, they were all titles given to him by the people of the world. The difference between them was that the former was the description given to him by the members of the foreign races, while the latter was the description given to him by the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven. Since most of the low-grade foreign races and the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven could not speak the same language, it was naturally difficult for them to address Ning Fan in the same way. The reason why they all used the title Yama to address him was undoubtedly a coincidence. Although it was a coincidence, there was also a certain inevitability to it. Ning Fan's figure, which kept galloping across the battlefield of the Realm River, was really like the King of Hell. Wherever Ning Fan passed by, the corpses of the foreign races piled up like mountains. During the chaos in the Eastern Realm River, Ning Fan had almost relied on his own strength to defeat the foreign races that came out of the water in the battlefield of the Realm River where no quasi-saints would come out. Only then did he lay a solid foundation for the peace of the chaos in the Eastern Realm River. Slaughtering an immortal emperor, killing a half-step saint, and subduing a lightning infant. Ning Fan's battle achievements had already spread across the entire Eastern Heaven. His name shocked the world and countless sects of the Eastern Heaven turned pale when they heard of him. When Ning Fan's battle results were passed to Zhang Yu, Even someone as strong as immortal concubine Zhang Yu felt astonished. Zhang Yu finally realized that Ning Fan was a rising sun in the cultivation world during the Age of Chaos. Now that he was already in the middle of the sky, there was no longer anyone who could stop his rise. The Dark Ones couldn't. The foreign races of the border river were no exception. Apart from feeling shocked, immortal concubine Zhang Yu was secretly worried about Ning Fan's safety. Even though Ning Fan had given her an order not to allow the people around him to participate in the Battle of the Border River, when Xiang Bozi and the others invited her to come along with them, she still could not help but feel worried and agreed to it. At this moment, immortal concubine Zhang Yu and nearly 100 reinforcements from the eastern sky had arrived at this place. They wanted to help Ning Fan and his group return to the water surface safely. Among these people, there were some who had a close relationship with Ning Fan and some who were strangers to him. There were immortal venerables, immortal kings, immortal emperors, and quasi-sages. The Eastern Sky's quasi-saints had dispatched a total of 6 people. This lineup could be called luxurious. Apart from Mu Song, Xiang Bozi, Old Man Hu, and Zhang Yu, there was also the southern tribe's 5th elder Zhao Wanggong and 6th elder Ta Shi, 2 great quasi-saints as reinforcements. The reason why these demi-saints had appeared at the right time was naturally because Emperor Grey, Emperor Divine Void, and the others had revealed the plan to repair the seal to their respective masters. When Xiang Bozi and Taoist Mu Song learned that Ning Fan and the others were actually going to risk their lives to repair the immortal sovereign realm's seal, their expressions turned solemn. Quasi-saints like them were not willing to get involved in the mortal world easily. They were even more unwilling to put themselves in danger and get involved in the chaos of the border river. However, perhaps the heroic actions of Ning Fan and the others had awakened their courage that was buried deep in their hearts. In the end, they still decided to wade into the murky waters and step into the mortal world. After all, Xiang Bozi and the others still retained the courage of the Purple Dipper immortal cultivators in their bones and blood. Today is a joyous occasion. The immortal sovereign realm's seal in the eastern border river has been repaired. The chaos of the foreign races will soon be quelled. Little friend Ning and the others will be the main contributors. Unfortunately, even though little friend Ning has repaired the immortal sovereign realm's seal, he still needs a lot of time to deal with the aftermath. If the aftermath is not carried out smoothly, it is very likely that he will fail on the verge of success and cause all the repairs to fail. Let's stall these quasi-saints of the foreign races here and buy little friend Ning some time to deal with the aftermath. When little friend Ning walks out of the sealed tower, we will retreat together. Xiang Bozi wore a smile on his face. He took the lead and charged towards the quasi-saints of the foreign races. He had a deep friendship with Ning Fan. The reason why he came here today was not because he was worried about Ning Fan. The mortal world is tumultuous and we should brave it. Brother Xiang's words are very kind. All of us quasi-saints will attack together and stall these quasi-saints of the foreign races. All the juniors just need to prepare a path of retreat at the side. Everything will be carried out according to the plan. Mu Song and Old Man Ho too laughed heartily and charged forward at the same time. Fellow Taoist Ning and the others have risked their lives for the survival of the Eastern Heaven. We should lend them a hand and protect their safety. According to our calculations, the aftermath will probably take at least 6 hours. As long as we can stall the quasi-saints of the foreign races for 6 hours, we will be victorious. The 5th and 6th elders of the southern clan also charged forward. Needless to say, Zhang Yu directly expressed her attitude with her actions. She chose the quasi-saint of the foreign races who had spoken rudely to her just now and dashed towards him with a cold expression. As for the rest of the Eastern Heaven immortal cultivators who had rushed to this place, they formed a formation and guarded the surroundings of the sealed tower, setting up some kind of formation. Fairy Lawn, what kind of formation are you guys setting up? Even with the experience of Emperor Tsang and the others, they could not recognize the formation that the Eastern Heaven immortal cultivators were setting up. Thus, they asked Immortal Lowly who was standing at the side. Immortal Lowly also came to this place. Even the matter of setting up the formation at the rear was led by her, directing everyone to set up the formation. This is the heaven-returning formation. Immortal Loli casually replied. However, her pitch-black eyes were looking at the direction of the sealed tower from beginning to end. She did not look at Emperor Song and the others. She was worried about Ning Fan. It's actually the heaven-returning formation. After hearing what was said, the expressions of Emperor Song and the others changed. They revealed a look of disbelief and then became overjoyed. This formation's reputation was too great. It was one of the true Heaven 300 absolute formations. It was a kind of ancient formation of the third step. Logically speaking, cultivators in the cultivation ending period should not understand this kind of ancient formation. Even Taoist Musong, who was a top-notch expert in the cultivation ending period, did not have the qualifications to possess this kind of formation. Considering that there were also ancient clans like the Southern Clan participating in this operation, Emperor Song and the others quickly understood who taught this formation to the Eastern Heaven reinforcements. Presumably, it was a colossus like the Southern Clan that generously took out this formation. Although fellow Taoist Ning has restored the immortal sovereign seal, he still needs at least a few hours to deal with the aftermath. During this period of time, it will be extremely dangerous for us. More and more foreign reinforcements will be coming to this place. However, if we have the protection of the heaven-returning formation, it won't be too difficult for us to protect ourselves or evacuate from this place. Emperor Song and the others said happily. Very soon, Emperor Song and the others also joined in the formation. They listened to Immortal Loli's command and began to carve formation marks in the water area. The heaven-returning formation was a top secret. Immortal Loli was the only one who was told about the complete formation by the Southern Clan. The others could only listen to her command to know where to carve the formation marks. All the Eastern Heaven cultivators below the Quasi-Saint Realm were setting up the heaven-returning formation. The Quasi-Saint Realm experts, on the other hand, were fighting against the Quasi-Saints of the foreign races. Logically speaking, first-level Quasi-Saints preferred to seek good fortune and avoid calamity. Normally, they would not risk their lives against Quasi-Saints of the same level. However, who asked Ning Fan to ruin the plan of the foreign races in the Eastern Boundary River to march into the Eastern Heaven? Seeing their millions of years of planning going down the drain, all the Quasi-Saints of the foreign races were enraged. They swore to make the Eastern Heaven cultivators in front of them pay the price. During the battle, these Quasi-Saints of the foreign races simply resorted to all means. They actually had the attitude of wanting to perish together with the Eastern Heaven's Quasi-Saints. Chi Old Man Ho Tu turned the power of his palm realm into an earthy yellow palm realm sword and cut off the head of his opponent. If it wasn't for the fact that he had just broken through to the Quasi-Saint realm, the power of his palm realm sword could have been even stronger. The one who faced him was a first-level Quasi-Saint of the Water Immortal clan. After his head was cut off, strangely, there was no trace of blood flowing out from his broken neck. Moreover, a blood-red Water Immortal grew out from his broken neck. As soon as the Water Immortal bloomed, the severed head actually grew back. It's actually the Palm Realm Earth. You do have some tricks. But so what if you're a Palm Realm expert? I have the bloodline of the ancient Water Immortal. My flower will never die. How can you kill me? Do you know that ever since the last time we attacked the Eastern Heaven, my clan has been planning for this second invasion for millions of years. Millions of years of painstaking efforts were ruined because of a brat. That Yama child deserves to be killed. You all deserve to be killed even more. Even if I have to give up my cultivation base, I will make you all pay the price. Hand over your lives. The 10-faced Water Immortal form. The Water Immortal Quasi-Saint seemed to have gone mad. He actually burned his cultivation base and transformed into 10 heads. On the forehead of each head was a Water Immortal totem that emitted demonic light. In an instant, the Water Immortal Quasi-Saint's aura rose to the limit of a first-level Quasi-Saint. Under its frenzied attack, one of the heads directly bit down on Elder Hoodoo's Palm Realm sword. It even bit off one of Elder Hoodoo's arms and swallowed it whole. Intense pain spread through his entire body, causing a drop of cold sweat to drip down Elder Hoodoo's forehead. But even more so, he was frightened. He wanted to reconstruct his arm, but shockingly discovered that he couldn't do it. The arm that was bitten off by the 10-faced water immortal was lost forever. It was extremely difficult to regrow it. It's actually the legendary 10-faced water immortal form. After this person uses this trick, he will definitely fall from the quasi-saint realm. He doesn't care about dropping his realm just to kill me. Elder Hood was shaken by the water immortal quasi-saint's determination. Since he started cultivating, he had experienced many battles between quasi-saints. But this was the first time he had encountered a situation where one's life was at stake. In the past, the quasi-saints who faced each other would rarely risk their lives in battle. They would all be wary of each other and compromise. But today was different. Elder Hood was deeply aware that if he didn't have the same resolve and risk his life against the quasi-saints of the foreign races, he would probably die here. Palm Realm's stacking ignition. Elder Hood's eyes revealed a ruthless look. He didn't hesitate to ignite the power of the Palm Realm. In an instant, his aura also reached the limit of a first-level quasi-saint. He and the water immortal quasi-saint were locked in a stalemate. They attacked each other crazily, causing blood to flow. Similar to the water immortal quasi-saint, the other quasi-saints of the foreign races also fought with their lives, forcing the Eastern Sky quasi-saint to fight with them. In a rage, the Talisman tribe's quasi-saint used tens of billions of ghost talismans that he had spent hundreds of millions of years to carve. He used up all of them, forcing Xiang Bozi to use all of his trump cards. He even used up the 12 mixed origin energy that he had refined for hundreds of millions of years. The two Golden Stone tribe's quasi-saints seemed to have gone crazy. They ignited their Golden Stone true spirits in exchange for power, forcing the two Southern tribes' quasi-saints to ignite their primordial spirits as well. The foreign race's Grand Divine Priest was even crazier. He was facing Taoist Musang, and they were evenly matched. After a bitter battle, the foreign race's Grand Divine Priest seized an opportunity. He took out hundreds of Khanate Dharma treasures and detonated them all. He didn't use ordinary methods to detonate them. Instead, he used a secret technique of the ancient explosion clan to explode the Dharma treasure's power by hundreds of times. Hundreds of Khanate Dharma treasures were detonated with a secret technique. The power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. The shockwaves of the explosion turned into hundreds of fire dragons. Even great cultivators from the ancient times would suffer some injuries from this attack. The shockwaves of the explosion were so powerful that they were no longer under the control of the Grand Divine Priest. As the caster, he naturally wouldn't be targeted by the shockwaves of the explosion. He was only swept up by a trace of the shockwaves. Even so, he was heavily injured and spat out blood. It was obvious how powerful the explosion was. Caught in the middle of the attack, Taoist Musang had to face the shockwaves of the explosion dozens of times stronger than the Grand Divine Priests. Despite his strength, Taoist Musang couldn't help but feel his heart race. He instantly opened his eyes, which were always tightly shut, and purple light burst forth from them. Taoist Musang didn't know what technique he had used, but the exploding fire dragons disappeared as soon as they got close to him. Taoist Musang had comprehended some kind of technique after opening his eyes. He had guided the terrifying shockwaves of the explosion to another dimension. Even though Taoist Musang had acted quickly, his body had been blown to pieces in that split second. Only his primordial spirit was lucky enough to survive, but it was also gravely injured. This made Taoist Musang's heart ache. For an existence like him, the materials he needed to reconstruct his body were extremely precious and difficult to find. Repairing his body was no easy task. The foreign race's Grand Divine Priest was shocked. He had used such a terrifying attack right from the start, yet he hadn't managed to kill Taoist Musang. This man was truly amazing. Rumor has it that Taoist Musang of the Eastern Heaven Immortal World is extremely powerful. Today, I finally know that these rumors are true. Unfortunately, no matter how strong you are, your body has been destroyed and only your primordial spirit remains. How can you be my mesh? A wise man submits to circumstances. Why don't you surrender to me, the descendant of Purple Myrtle? After this, I'm willing to share the position of the Grand Divine Priest of the Eastern Border River with you. What do you think? The foreign race's grand divine priest was extremely afraid of Taoist Musong, so he took the initiative to ask him to surrender. In your eyes, my body has been destroyed, but in the world after I open my eyes, my body is still there, and my golden body hasn't been destroyed. You don't understand. Because the world I see you can't see. Taoist Musong sneered and charged forward. He was truly amazing. With just his primordial spirit, he was able to force the foreign race's grand divine priest to retreat. Apart from Musong's side, Zhang Yu's side also had an advantage. Zhang Yu was facing a first-level demi-saint from the Cold Cave clan. Although this person was also attacking with all his might, the gap between him and Zhang Yu was too big. He simply couldn't give Zhang Yu too much pressure. Of course, it wasn't easy for Zhang Yu to defeat a first-level demi-saint who was fighting with all his might. Even with the many ancient techniques she had mastered, she could only maintain a slight advantage. Overall, the Eastern Heaven side had the upper hand in the battle of the demi-saints. When the 7th foreign race demi-saint arrived to help, the situation began to turn against the Eastern Heaven side. The 8th, the 9th, the 14th foreign race demi-saint. As time passed, less than an hour later, all the foreign race demi-saints in the eastern border river had arrived. When the foreign race's side had an absolute advantage in numbers, even the strong Musong and Zhang Yu fell into a disadvantageous position and suffered setbacks again and again. The others were in even more danger. Several times, the foreign race's side almost killed Xiang Bozi and the other demi-saints. It was only because of Musong and Zhang Yu's help that they didn't succeed. Let me tell you a piece of good news. According to this old man's observation, although the eastern border river's seal of the immortal emperor has already been repaired, it still needs a certain amount of time to deal with the aftermath and reinforce it. Otherwise, the seal of the immortal emperor will become unstable and return to its weak state. This is precisely the reason why the child Yama hasn't come out of the sealed pagoda. It is also the reason why the Eastern Heavens demi-saints are fighting bitterly here to buy time for the child Yama. In other words, we still have a chance to break the immortal emperor's seal. Tens of millions of years of planning still haven't been in vain. As long as we kill the people outside the pagoda, as long as we kill the child Yama before he finishes his business and destroy the pagoda, we still have a small chance to break the recently repaired immortal emperor's seal. All of a sudden, the foreign race's great divine priest realized something and told the other foreign race demi-saints the shocking news he had discovered. As soon as they heard that they still had a chance to attack the Eastern Heaven, the foreign race's morale skyrocketed and their killing intent became even heavier. There was even a demi-saint who directly gave up his life and used some kind of lost purple myrtle divine ability to self-detonate and use all of his blood essence to transform into the purple myrtle imperial blade, which seriously injured Taoist Musong's primordial spirit. It was an injury that even Taoist Musong's secret technique of opening his eyes could not negate. That kind of damage contained the conviction of the foreign race demi-saint, even if he had to die. Defying the crepe myrtle Tao to emptiness, my star annihilation followed by myriad star slaughter. Unify the northern wilderness for all eternity. Unify the northern wilderness. That was the fearless song of the non-humankind sage-to-be who sacrificed his life. He, too, had a belief that he had to achieve even at the cost of his life. To be able to make a quasi-sage willingly give up his life, the conviction of these foreign quasi-sages was truly indestructible. The blood feud of the Ziwei immortal cultivators was buried in the hearts of every Ziwei descendant. The shame of their ancestors was something they had to redeem at all costs. For the glory of their ancestors, for the beauty of Ziwei immortal cultivators, they could give up everything, including their own lives. This kind of enemy was terrifying. Even Musong and the others, who were in the opposing camp, couldn't help but feel a trace of respect for this kind of enemy. Unfortunately, they and the alien races were destined to walk different paths. The descendants of Ziwei had the glory of Ziwei, but the descendants of Zido also had the glory of Zido. Taoist Musong also had something that he must protect. In front of this matter, it was impossible for him to make any concessions. I, the Zido immortal cultivator, Do not hesitate to fight, do not fear a battle, life and death are all for Zido immortal. Taoist Musang was the first to roar. At this moment, how could he still remember to be careful in everything as a quasi-sage? How could he still think about his own safety? He forgot. He completely forgot about it. He only remembered his identity and the glory that was passed down from his ancestors in the depths of his bones and blood. That glory only had one name. It was called Zido Immortal Cultivator. I, the Zido Immortal Cultivator, do not hesitate to fight, do not fear a battle, life and death are all for Zido Immortal. Xiang Bozi and the others revealed a determined look and fought in front of him. All of this was just to buy time for Ning Fan to reinforce the seal and to prevent the eastern sky from being destroyed. Just for the burning conviction in their hearts, they did not hesitate to die in battle here. Why should they be afraid of the mortal world? If they are afraid, then it's fine if they don't cultivate this Tao. 6 against 13. All the quasi-sages were fighting with their lives on the line. They were killing the enemy regardless of the cost. Emperor Tsang and the other Eastern Sky reinforcements were shocked by such a heroic battle. What shocked them was not the cruelty of the battle between quasi-sages but the conviction. This battle had nothing to do with the usual killing and seizing treasures of the cultivation world. It had nothing to do with those interests and schemes. There were no benefits. Regardless of winning or losing, the reason why everyone fought with their lives on the line was just to carry out their conviction. Such a battle was something Emperor Tsang and the others had never seen before. They only felt that in their previous life of cultivation, in a lifetime of scheming, in a lifetime of gains and losses, in the face of such a heroic conviction, nothing counted for anything, they were too insignificant. The immortal emperors of the foreign races who came late were also good. Whether it was the immortal emperors, immortal kings or immortal venerables of the Eastern Sky reinforcements, everyone was infected by each other's conviction. Countless underwater sands were flattened by the fluctuations of the battle between quasi-sages. No one dared to approach this battle between quasi-sages. Only the location of the sealed tower remained standing. None of the Eastern Sky reinforcements around the sealed tower were affected by the fluctuations of the quasi-sages. This was all the credit of the heaven-returning grand formation. Under the direction of the immortal Lowly, the heaven-returning grand formation's runes were engraved little by little. In the name of the purple myrtle immortals, I am willing to sacrifice 180 million years of cultivation to ask the saints to write the river diagram and Luo Shu to kill the enemy. Seeing that a quasi-sage couldn't even kill Taoist Musang, the great divine priest flew into a rage. He didn't hesitate to pay a huge price to summon an ancient high-grade primordial magic treasure. The river diagram and Luo Shu. This was a magic treasure that only saints were qualified to use. With the great divine priest's second stage quasi-sage cultivation, he would have to pay a huge price to use this treasure. This was the most precious treasure passed down by the ancestors of the Dragon Horse clan. It was the great divine priest's greatest trump card. He saw the river diagram and Luo Shu shoot out a ray of golden light. Taoist Musang, who had been able to resist the siege of several quasi-sages, was directly pierced by the golden light. Golden blood sprayed from his mouth as he fell to the ground. The great divine priest laughed crazily. His fingers changed, shooting out even more golden light from the river diagram. Countless strands of the river diagram's golden light hung down like silk ribbons, wanting to behead Taoist Musang. My life is over. The aura of death on Taoist Musang's nascent divinity grew heavier. His vitality was rapidly draining away from the river diagram's golden light. Seeing that Taoist Musang was not far from death, at the moment of imminent peril, a pitch-black, jet-black formation light suddenly spread in all directions with the sealed pagoda as the center. The moment he saw the inky array light, Taoist Musang suddenly had the confidence to survive. He used the last bit of his eye power to shoot out a boundless purple light. In the blink of an eye, he and the other Eastern Sky quasi-sages teleported into the inky array light. As for the quasi-sages of the foreign races and the thousands of strands of golden light from the river diagram and Luo Shu, They were all kept outside the array light. Fortunately, the Great Heaven Return Array was set up in time. Otherwise, I would have died without a doubt. As soon as Taoist Musong's nascent divinity entered the array light, he coughed up blood and fainted. The other quasi-sages were all seriously injured and didn't have much strength left to fight. Xiang Bozi's body was half destroyed. The void above Elder Hudu's palm was shattered, and his Dao foundation was severely damaged. The two southern tribe quasi-sages were seriously injured and on the verge of death. As soon as they entered the array light, they fainted. Zhang Yu's complexion was deathly pale. Her moon-white palace dress was covered with blood. Perhaps she was the one in the best condition among everyone, but the injuries she received were definitely not light. There were several wounds on her body that were bleeding profusely and couldn't be healed. It was unknown what kind of special technique had injured her. Xian, you did well. If you hadn't led the other fellow Taoists to set up this array light, we would certainly have died. Zhang Yu patted Xian Loli's little head and thanked her. She had always sympathized with and loved this little girl who recognized the enemy as her father. Although the Great Heaven Return Array has a great reputation, I don't know how long it can last under the siege of these quasi-sages of the foreign races. Although Xian Loli had been taught by the southern tribe and set up this array light, she wasn't clear about the specific power of this array. She had only heard about it before. It could be said that the eastern sky quasi-sages were already an arrow at the end of its flight after being besieged by the foreign races quasi-sages. The enemies were more than twice the number of quasi-sages. It wasn't strange for the eastern sky quasi-sages to be unable to defeat the enemies. It was already very rare for them to be able to save everyone's lives. It was also thanks to Taoist Musong and Zhang Yu's efforts. Xian Loli was also not very confident about whether this array light could protect everyone and help Ning Fan strengthen the seal to buy some time. She could only take one step at a time. Once the array light is broken, everyone's outcome would be very, very tragic. Seeing that they would be able to kill Musong and the others with just a little more effort, but these people managed to escape into a formation, the great divine priest's expression turned incomparably gloomy. The other quasi-sages also wore the same expression. I can break a mere formation light with a single strike. Do you think you can survive from me with just a formation light? The great divine priest sneered and shot thousands of golden rays from He Tu and Luo Shu at the black formation light. The destructive power of a high-grade innate magic treasure was extremely terrifying. All the quasi-sages of the foreign races were shocked by its momentum. However, what surprised them was that a dignified high-grade innate magic treasure actually failed to penetrate the unknown black formation light in a single strike. All the quasi-sages realized that the black protective formation light was not an ordinary formation light. They realized that the surface of the formation light was coated with a layer of membrane that looked like dense scales. It was actually the sacred membrane that could only be activated by third-step formation masters. What kind of formation is this? There is actually a sacred membrane on the formation light. The quasi-sages of the foreign races became slightly solemn. It was not strange that they did not know about the heaven-returning grand formation. However, they could tell that this formation was very powerful. This is the heaven-returning grand formation. I can't be wrong. I've read about it in an ancient book before. The great divine priest of the foreign races was knowledgeable. After examining it for a few times, he recognized the formation and gasped. How should he put it? In terms of grade, He Tu and Luo Shu were items of the same grade as the heaven-returning grand formation. However, He Tu and Luo Shu were not offensive magic treasures. Even though they possessed the power of high-grade innate magic treasures, it was very difficult for them to penetrate the defense of the heaven-returning grand formation. The power of a magic treasure was closely related to the user's cultivation level. Based on the great divine priest's cultivation level, it was impossible for him to display the destructive power of a third-step formation. Formations, on the other hand, were not related to the user's cultivation level. As long as there were enough materials, even the weakest person could arrange a formation with 80 to 90% of its power. In this way, it was impossible to break the heaven-returning grand formation with He Tu and Luo Shu alone. Fortunately, they had many quasi-sages on their side, so the great divine priest was not worried that they could not break the formation. Let's attack together. No matter what, we must break this formation. Once this formation is broken, all the eastern sky cultivators inside will become meat on the chopping block. It will not be difficult to kill them. If we march into the eastern sky, there is still a glimmer of hope. The great divine priest ordered in a deep voice. In an instant, more than 10 quasi-sages of the foreign races attacked together. The formation light of the heaven-returning grand formation flickered under their siege, but it was not broken. 2 hours passed. 4 hours passed. The great divine priest's expression was extremely unsightly. 13 quasi-sages had joined hands to attack the formation, but they actually could not break it. This heaven-returning grand formation was just too powerful. The reputation of the 300 absolute formations of the true heaven was not just for show. Only a stronger attack could break the shell of this formation. How long more until Lord Blood God arrives? The great divine priest's expression was gloomy as he transmitted his voice to the quasi-sages beside him. We can already detect the power of the Blood God. I think Lord Blood God is not far from here. A quasi-sage who was good at sensing answered. That's good. We will take a break and not attack anymore. The shell of this heaven-returning grand formation is too hard. Let's let Lord Blood God break it in one go. The great divine priest said helplessly. Then, a strange scene appeared. The quasi-sages of the foreign races suddenly stopped attacking the heaven-returning grand formation. Instead, they sat down cross-legged and adjusted their breathing, as if they were waiting for something. The eastern sky cultivators were struggling to maintain the formation's operation, waiting for Ning Fan to come out from the sealed tower. Seeing that the quasi-sages of the foreign races suddenly gave up on attacking the formation, many of them heaved a sigh of relief. They thought that the foreign races' quasi-sages had given up on attacking the formation. However, only a few of them could sense that something was wrong with the atmosphere. It's very depressing. Extremely depressing. It seems like something bad is approaching this place. Zhang Yu said solemnly. At the moment, only she, Xiang Bozi and Huda were not in a coma due to severe injuries. Among the three of them, she was the strongest and her injuries were the lightest. Naturally, she was the leader of the group. After hearing Zhang Yu's words, Xiang Bozi and Old Man Huda's faces turned solemn. They could also feel that some peerless, ferocious creature was approaching them. Extremely strong. There seemed to be only one thing in the entire eastern border river that could give them such a terrifying sense of crisis. I'm afraid Blood God Gung Wu is coming. Xiang Bozi revealed the mystery. Ning Fan was not the only one who knew about Blood God Gung Wu's existence. As a quasi-sage, if he did not know about Blood God Gung Wu's existence, why would he be so secretive about the chaos of the border river? Just as Xiang Bozi's voice fell, a building in the ruins of the Heaven Shadow clan in the distance suddenly collapsed. The rock stratum at the bottom of the water cracked. A gigantic tentacle that was as thick as a mountain suddenly pierced out from the crack of the rock stratum. Without saying a word, it blasted towards the heaven-returning grand formation. At the moment when the tentacle approached, the quasi-sages of the foreign races were all delighted while the cultivators of the eastern sky were shocked. Everyone could feel the aura force of an ancient great cultivator coming from the tentacle. Boom! For the first time, a crack appeared on the unbreakable heaven-returning grand formation because of an external attack. After all, this formation was not set up by a sage. Its defensive power could not reach the third step. As for the attacking power of this tentacle, it was already infinitely close to the third step. Awesome! 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 Seeing that its all-out attack had only managed to create a crack in the heaven-returning array, the blood god, who was hidden in the rock stratum at the bottom of the lake, became even more enraged. Due to its low intelligence, it could only express its anger with simple words. Ox, 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 ox? No one knew what it was trying to say. Only it knew what kind of anger was contained in the words of this low intelligence. It could feel that the damned Nyo Manshan was close at hand. He had already woken up and was in the formation in front of it, inside the sealed tower. As long as it could destroy the formation, it could fight with Neo-Manshan again. It wanted to eat Neo-Manshan. It wanted to pay back all the humiliation it had suffered that year. Awesome! 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 More tentacles pierced through the rock stratum and attacked the formation. Several quasi-sages of the foreign races happened to be in the way of some tentacles. They couldn't dodge in time and were blown away by the tentacles, vomiting blood. Damn it! That evildoer can't distinguish between friend and foe again. He promised us that he wouldn't attack us casually. The injured quasi-sages of the foreign races were so angry that they started to curse. The Grand Divine Priest's face changed. He immediately scolded them. Watch your words. If you provoke this great god, none of you will be able to live. Don't let him go. This monster is so cruel. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.